Chapter 442. A battle between cultivators was a battle of life and death. The weaker party would die without a grave. "Hide behind me," said Lin Feng, pulling Zi Yuan behind him. He took out his black dragon sword and swung it at the arrows. Clang, 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 the sound of metal colliding could be heard. Lin Feng cut down the arrow that was flying towards him. The rest of the people hurriedly drew their weapons to block the incoming arrows. Pooh! Suddenly, the sound of flesh being pierced was heard. Ah! A blood-curdling scream was heard. Fan Lingfeng had been shot in the left side of his chest. The arrow pierced through his body in an instant. Whoosh! Another arrow was shot, aiming for Fan Lingfeng's head. Lin Feng's facial expression slightly changed. He hastily raised his sword and cut the arrow, which was flying towards Fan Lingfeng's head. "Seal activate!" shouted Daoist Xian Cheng. He activated the protective array on the boat. Buzz! A violent fluctuation swept out, and an energy light screen appeared, wrapping the entire boat inside. At this moment, the life-stealing scholar's subordinates once again shot out a barrage of arrows. However, all of them were blocked by Xian Cheng's restriction. Whoosh! The small boat quickly rushed into the fog and disappeared without a trace. Chase! The life-stealing scholar waved his hand and chased after the boat that Lin Feng and the others were on. However, the fog covered the magnetic fog lake, and visibility was very low. He couldn't find Lin Feng and the others. "I don't want to die. Save me." Fan Lingfeng looked at everyone pleadingly. "Cousin, he's so pitiful. Save him," said Zi Yuanyuan softly. She was very kind. Lin Feng nodded and squatted down. He looked at the arrow that had pierced through Fan Lingfeng's chest, and his expression became serious. He had to pull the arrow out first to stop the bleeding and heal the wound. If he stopped the bleeding and healed the wound first, he would start bleeding again when he pulled the arrow out. Granny Fecta glanced at the injured Fan Lingfeng and said, "The arrow shattered his heart. He can't be saved." As soon as Granny Tianji's voice fell, Fan Lingfeng's body twitched violently a few times before he completely lost all signs of life. Lin Feng's expression was extremely gloomy. He looked coldly at Xian Cheng and said in a deep voice, "Daoist, shouldn't you give us a reasonable explanation?" Lei Ming's face darkened as well. "You lied to us by saying that you would bring us across the lake. You were actually bringing us to search for that golden fire fruit. You wanted us to be your cannon fodder, right?" The middle-aged female cultivator, Han Yen, who had been silent, looked at Sun Booping with a gloomy gaze. She said coldly, "Sun Booping, we have known each other for 10 years. I didn't expect you to be so cruel and unscrupulous. You even deceived an acquaintance." Sun Booping suddenly said in a deep voice, "Han Yen, you can't talk nonsense. When did I deceive you?" Indeed, Daoist Xian Cheng wanted to bring everyone across the magnetic fog lake. However, before that, we had to search for the golden fire fruit. Everyone's expressions turned even uglier. Sun Booping was simply shameless. He actually had the nerve to use such a clumsy excuse to fool everyone. The skinny old man, Zhao Zhongluan, said gloomily, "If anyone has an opinion about this matter, you can jump off the boat now. No one is stopping you." Lin Feng and the others chose to remain silent after hearing Zhao Zhongluan's words. It seemed that Zhao Zhongluan was also in cahoots with Daoist Xian Cheng and Sun Booping. Lin Feng, Lei Ming, and Han Yen secretly exchanged glances. Lei Ming's eyes flashed coldly, as if he wanted to take a gamble. From Lei Ming's point of view, Daoist Xian Cheng, Sun Booping, and Zhao Zhongluan had 3 people, while they had 4 people including Granny Tianji. It was still uncertain who would win and who would lose in this battle. Han Yen was a little hesitant. while Lin Feng shook his head. If he was the only one here, he might be like Lei Ming, planning to fight to the death with Daoist Xian Cheng, and the other two to seize control of the boat. However, Lin Feng still had Zi Yuan by his side. Zi Yuan had almost no cultivation. Once they fought, the other party only needed one palm to take Zi Yuan's life. Lin Feng would definitely not fight to the death with Daoist Xiancheng and the others. He shook his head slightly. Lei Ming was secretly anxious. In the end, he could only sigh. Daoist Xiancheng said gloomily, "Some people seem to have some other thoughts, but this poor Daoist advises this benefactor. It's best not to have any other thoughts, because if you dare to have any other thoughts, only death awaits." As his voice fell, Daoist Xian Cheng's body emitted an extremely terrifying aura. Martial King 10th Heavenly Layer. Lei Ming's eyes revealed a trace of astonishment. Lin Feng's expression also became very solemn. This Daoist Xian Cheng's cultivation was too terrifying. It was not something they could contend against, because Lei Ming's cultivation was about the 5th heavenly layer of the Martial King realm, and Han Yan was also about the same realm. Granny Tianji closed her eyes and did not communicate with anyone, as if she had no intention of dealing with Daoist Xiancheng. What's more, the other party was not just Daoist Xiancheng, but also Sun Buping and Zhao Zhongluan. Therefore, if this battle really started, Lin Feng and the others would undoubtedly die. At this time, Sun Buping said with a smile, "Everyone, there is no need to be so hostile. The golden flame fruit is a legendary spirit fruit. This spirit fruit can greatly increase the probability of a cultivator entering the Yin-Yang realm. If we obtain the golden flame fruit, everyone will have a share. This is also a win-win situation." The golden flame fruit was indeed a treasure of heaven and earth. Countless people would go crazy for it, but it had always been a legendary treasure. Besides, Daoist Xiancheng had obviously failed to find it many times. Now, he was looking for the golden flame fruit again. Lin Feng and the others naturally didn't think that Daoist Xiancheng and the others would succeed. Besides, if they encountered danger, Daoist Xiancheng would definitely use them as a shield. However, the current situation forced Lin Feng and the others to endure for the time being. "All right, let's go look for the golden flame fruit together, but you better keep your promise. After you find the golden flame fruit, we will also have a share of it. Also, you must safely send us to the other side of the magnetic fog lake. Otherwise, the fish will die and the net will be broken," said Lei Ming while grinding his teeth. "Of course, we've always kept our promises," said Lin Feng. Daoist Xiancheng nodded. The boat continued moving deeper into the lake, but after a short time, they sensed a terrifying and ice-cold qi enveloping them. This aura made everyone's hair stand on end. "Not good. Something terrifying must be watching us," said Lin Feng in a deep voice. "Look, what's that?" Han Yan suddenly pointed in the distance. In the thick fog, there were 2 bright moons in the sky. The terrifying qi was coming from there. When they looked carefully, they were extremely shocked. Those weren't moons. They were the eyes of a ferocious beast. Chapter 443. Blackwater Mystical Snake. "It's that Blackwater Mystical Snake." Sun Buping screamed in horror. That was because that terrifying existence was quickly approaching them. Looking from afar, they could see that frighteningly huge head. Only a small part of it was above the water, but it was already 1,000 meters high. 2 pairs of cold eyes were like 2 bright moons hanging in the air. Lin Feng and the others had already seen how terrifying the black water mystical snake was, but they hadn't thought they'd meet one here. Endless fear filled everyone's heart. Swoosh! The speed of the boat was extremely fast, rushing into the distance, hoping to escape from this place. Rumble, but at this moment, huge waves surged into the sky, sweeping across the world. Boom! Then a huge tail appeared and directly whipped towards the boat. It was a tail as big as a mountain. The Blackwater mystical snake whipped its tail towards the boat. Jump off the boat. Xian Cheng roared in horror and jumped out first. Everyone hurriedly jumped into the water. Zi Yuan was completely stunned. Lin Feng held Zi Yuan in his arms and jumped into the lake. Bang! The Blackwater mystical snake's huge tail whipped down fiercely, splashing water everywhere. No one could avoid the Blackwater mystical snake's attack. The powerful impact sent Lin Feng and the others flying. Xian Cheng, Lei Ming, and Sun Buping all had extremely powerful defensive treasures on them. But at this moment, those treasures were also shattered, and they fell into the lake. Han Yan and Zhao Zhongluan were wearing pinnacle spiritual treasures. They encountered a great disaster, and their bodies directly exploded, dying tragically on the spot. Lin Feng was also sent flying by the huge force of the Blackwater mystical snake's attack. Wah! Lin Feng immediately vomited blood and fell into the water with Zi Yuan in his arms. Zi Yuan felt her face was hot. She touched it and realized that it was Lin Feng's blood. Zi Yuan finally came back to her senses. She looked at Lin Feng, who was sinking into the lake, and her little face was extremely pale. "No, master, don't die. It's all my fault," Zi Yuan cried anxiously. She quickly swam into the water, hugged Lin Feng, and dragged Lin Feng up. But at this moment, a terrifying aura shrouded them. The Blackwater mystical snake had already rushed over, its huge head hanging above the water, its cold eyes looking at Zi Yuan and Lin Feng. The Blackwater mystical snake had a strange feeling in its heart. If it could devour these two people, its bloodline power would be greatly enhanced. And its bloodline power, the Blackwater mystical snake, opened its mouth, wanting to devour Lin Feng and Zi Yuan. Zi Yuan looked at the Blackwater mystical snake in horror. She carried Lin Feng on her back and struggled not to sink. She only had one thought in her mind. She had to protect the master. It had always been the master who had protected her. Now it was her turn to protect the master. Zi Yuan's eyes became resolute. She shouted, "Back off! Back off! I won't let you hurt the master." The Blackwater mystical snake naturally understood what Zi Yuan meant. However, it was full of disdain. It had devoured too many human cultivators. Before they were devoured, they either begged or threatened it. But so what? The Blackwater mystical snake didn't care. It opened its mouth wide, wanting to swallow the two humans in front of it. However, the Blackwater mystical snake's sudden appearance caused the girl's eyes to change. The girl's eyes turned dark green in color. CNPNYs 3K, a mysterious and ancient language came out of Zi Yuan's mouth. Zi Yuan's eyes became more and more demonic. Those deep green eyes seemed to be filled with endless mystery. Zi Yuan extended her right hand. Her voice became deep and ethereal. It was as if her voice had come from another world. Screech! The Blackwater mystical snake screamed in agony. It felt as if its soul was about to be torn apart. The Blackwater mystical snake had never felt this way before. It hadn't even felt this way when it fought a human expert to the death. Why? Why is this happening? My soul is about to be torn apart. The Blackwater mystical snake screamed in agony. Its mountainous tail slapped the surface of the water viciously. Thump, thump, thump. Waves of 10,000 feet tall swept across the sky. I've CNPNYs 3K. Zi Yuan's deep and mysterious voice sounded again. The Blackwater mystical snake felt its injuries worsen. The Blackwater mystical snake had never felt so terrified before. Yes, it was fear. Facing the girl who seemed so weak that it could crush her in an instant, the Blackwater mystical snake felt endless fear. The Blackwater mystical snake even thought that it was an illusion, but it was real. 3K, I've Siempienwes. The mysterious voice sounded again, like the voice of the Grim Reaper. The Blackwater mystical snake retreated in terror. It seemed to have thought of something. It cried out in disbelief, "Deep green eyes! Heavenly demon eyes! Is it the legendary heavenly demon eyes?" The words she was muttering were the snake tongue. That's right, it must be the legendary heavenly demon devil eyes and snake tongue. Why would the heavenly demon devil eyes and snake tongue appear? Is she a descendant of the terrifying ancestor sky serpent? She's a descendant of an ancestor who has awakened the heavenly demon eyes and mastered the snake tongue. That's terrifying, really terrifying. If she recovers the memory of the divine powers in her bloodline, if she can master the true power of the heavenly demon eyes and snake tongue, then who in the heavens can stand against her? The ancestor sky serpent. Legend had it that he was born at the beginning of the world, at the same time as the Archean dragon-esque elephant. How terrifying was he? The ancestor sky serpent's most terrifying abilities were the legendary heavenly demon eyes and snake tongue. These were two unimaginable abilities. No one knew how terrifying the heavenly demon's devil eye and snake tongue were, because those who had seen them were already dead. Boom! The Blackwater mystical snake did not dare to stay. It dived into the magnetic fog lake and disappeared. After the Blackwater mystical snake escaped, Zi Yuan's deep green eyes returned to normal. What happened? Why did the Blackwater mystical snake run away? Chapter 444. Sir, wake up. Sob. It's all my fault. It's all my fault. Lin Feng could faintly hear sobbing. Then he felt something dripping from the corner of his mouth. It tasted salty. I think I was attacked by the Blackwater serpent. Am I dead? Suddenly, a thought appeared in his mind. Lin Feng didn't want to die. There were too many things he wanted to do. But at that moment, Lin Feng had encountered the Blackwater mystical snake. There was no way he could survive. Lin Feng was extremely tired. He wanted to fall asleep. He was surrounded by an endless amount of darkness, little by little. But at that moment, the sorrowful cries echoed in the endless darkness once again. Sir, wake up, will you? I beg you. Sir, don't leave me alone. Ziyun, I'm crying. Didn't I die? Why am I hearing Ziyun sobbing? Just as Lin Feng was about to be devoured by the darkness, the sorrowful sobbing sounded in Lin Feng's heart. He tried to open his eyes. A tear-stained face appeared in his line of sight. Ziyun. Lin Feng murmured, That's great. You've finally woken up. You scared me to death. Ziyun was so happy that she started crying. I'm not dead. It feels so good to be alive. Lin Feng murmured. He could feel the endless darkness dispersing. He was still alive. However, Lin Feng's injuries were too severe. He quickly fainted again. When Lin Feng woke up again, the sky was already dark. He found himself lying in a warm embrace. Lin Feng smelled the fragrance of a virgin. He moved slightly. He could even feel a pair of bulges near his mouth. Were those Ziyun's breasts? This little girl had actually developed so well. Lin Feng couldn't help but blush. He was already so injured, yet he was still thinking about such nonsense. Young master, you're awake. Yuan looked at Lin Feng in pleasant surprise. Lin Feng nodded and said, Ziyuan, help me up. Ziyuan nodded and helped Lin Feng up. What is this place? Lin Feng asked. This is a deserted island. Ziyuan said softly. Lin Feng nodded. He and Ziyuan were really lucky to be on a deserted island. Lin Feng looked at Zi Yuan in confusion. What about the Blackwater mystical snake? It didn't eat us? How did we escape? Zi Yuan also looked confused and said, that Blackwater mystical snake seems to have run away, but I don't know why it ran away either. Lin Feng said, maybe there's a reason we don't know, but to be able to survive the Blackwater mystical snake's attack is really lucky. Cough, cough, cough. After saying a few words, Lin Feng started coughing violently. He coughed up a mouthful of blood. His face was still very pale. It was hard to imagine how strong the Blackwater mystical snake was. Lin Feng had already been severely injured by the Blackwater mystical snake's attack. If the snake had attacked him again, he would have died a horrible death. Young master, how are you feeling? Zi Yuan's eyes reddened when she saw Lin Feng coughing up blood. She was terrified and on the verge of tears. She kept blaming herself. I'm so useless. I've dragged you down. If it weren't for me, you would have been able to dodge the Blackwater mystical snake's attack. It's all my fault. I couldn't help you at all. You almost died because of me. Silly girl, don't blame yourself. If it weren't for me, you would have died in the magnetic fog lake a long time ago. Lin Feng wiped away Zi Yuan's tears and said, Zi Yuan, help protect me. I need to go into seclusion to recover. Don't worry, young master. I won't let you get hurt again. Zi Yuan clenched her fists. All right. Lin Feng nodded and smiled. I'm sure you can do it. Lin Feng's injuries were too severe. He didn't dare waste any more time. He sat down cross-legged and swallowed a few healing pills. Then he used the ancient dragonesque elephant incantation to heal himself. Time passed slowly. After an unknown amount of time, Lin Feng finally opened his eyes. He sensed his body's condition and found that he had mostly recovered. When Zi Yuan saw that Lin Feng had woken up, she was pleasantly surprised. Young master, are you finally healed? Yes, I'm completely healed, Lin Feng said when he saw how tired Zi Yuan was. Didn't you rest at all? I have to protect you. Young master, Zi Yuan said softly. Lin Feng was touched. He said, rest for a while. Don't tire yourself out. Zi Yuan nodded and hugged Lin Feng tightly. She was so tired that she quickly fell asleep. She had a beautiful smile on her face. She was having a good dream. Lin Feng's heart was pounding. She was really tired. She quickly fell asleep and smiled. Lin Feng didn't know what she was dreaming about. Lin Feng looked outside the cave. It was still night, and the island was very desolate. Lin Feng didn't even hear the roars of beasts. In the middle of the night, suddenly, a golden light shot up into the sky from the depths of the island. It flashed and disappeared. What was that? Lin Feng was shocked. He thought he had seen wrong, but Lin Feng quickly realized that he hadn't seen wrong. It was indeed a golden light that had shot up into the sky and disappeared. There must be something shocking in the depths of the island, Lin Feng muttered. The next day, Zi Yuan woke up. Lin Feng and Zi Yuan walked towards the depths of the island. Lin Feng was still thinking about the golden light he had seen the night before. It had come from the depths of the island and shot up into the sky. The island was shrouded in thick fog, and visibility was limited to 5 or 6 meters. When he released his divine sense, he could roughly sense the situation around 20 meters away. Lin Feng didn't know if there was something terrifying on the island, so he was very careful. When Lin Feng arrived at the depths of the island, he saw a ruin. It seemed that many people had lived here in the past, but now it was completely abandoned. Crack, crack, crack. Suddenly, the ground shook violently. Not long after, the ground cracked open and a pitch-black figure rushed out. It was an extremely ugly existence that emitted an evil and gloomy aura. It had a pair of demonic eyes that made people's hair stand on end. Corpse demon! Lin Feng gasped. It was a legendary corpse demon. It was said that after a strong cultivator died, their corpse would be buried underground and gradually turn into a dried corpse. Later on, by chance, they would awaken a consciousness and turn into an evil corpse demon. The corpse demon's body was extremely hard, even harder than many defensive treasures. It was invulnerable, and it had a ferocious temperament. Seeing the corpse demon rush out from the ground, Lin Feng quickly pulled Zi Yuan and hid behind a tree. He covered their noses with his hands. Lin Feng didn't even dare breathe because the corpse demon could sense the faint sound of their breathing. After the corpse demon rushed out from the ground, it looked around with its gloomy green eyes. In the end, it roared and rushed into the depths of the ruins. Chapter 445. Sir, what kind of monster was that? After the zombie left, Zi Yuan's face was still very pale. She recalled the sinister aura that the zombie had emitted and felt her soul tremble. That was a zombie. After a powerhouse died, his body turned into a desiccated corpse, but for some reason, his evil thoughts were awakened. Lin Feng explained, Sir, this place is so scary. Let's leave. Zi Yuan said, a little scared. In the depths of the island, a zombie had appeared. Lin Feng also wanted to leave. He nodded and was about to leave with Zi Yuan when he suddenly saw a golden light appear in the depths of the island. Even though there was a white fog, it was difficult to hide the golden light. Lin Feng was shocked. The golden light he had seen the night before had appeared again. Lin Feng changed his mind. He wanted to go and take a look. The golden light was extraordinary. Perhaps it was something shocking. Lin Feng changed his mind. He wanted to explore the depths of the island. This was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Even if he encountered a zombie, Lin Feng believed that with his speed, he would be able to shake it off even with Zi Yuan. Sir, what is that golden light? Zi Yuan asked curiously when she saw the golden light. Lin Feng said, perhaps it's a shocking treasure. Let's go take a look. Okay. Zi Yuan nodded. Even though she just started to come into contact with cultivation. Under the influence of what she'd seen and heard, she knew that fortuitous encounters were difficult to find. If she encountered a fortuitous encounter and didn't grab hold of it, then she might regret it for her entire lifetime. Deep in the depths of the island, the golden light shot up into the sky. No matter what it was shocking. Lin Feng spread out his divine will and probed with all his might. He could roughly sense everything within a 28-meter radius. Zi Yuan grabbed Lin Feng's sleeve. The two of them headed deeper into the ruins. Suddenly, there was a violent fluctuation in front of them, followed by the sound of fighting. Lin Feng was shocked. A great battle had broken out. The white fog made it impossible for him to see the situation in front of him. Lin Feng released his divine will. The battle in front of him entered his eyes. 3 cultivators were besieging the zombie. These 3 cultivators turned out to be Taoist Xian Cheng, Sun Buping, and Lei Ming. Lin Feng was slightly surprised. It seemed that the 3 of them had also survived. Since Zhao Zhongluan and Han Yan were nowhere to be seen, Lin Feng guessed that the 2 of them had most likely met with misfortune. In fact, just as Lin Feng expected, when the Blackwater Serpent's mountain-sized tail swung down, Zhao Zhongluan and Han Yan died right on the spot. The others fell into the water and reached the island one after another. Suddenly, Lin Feng's pupils shrank. He saw a plant with 3 golden fruits growing on it. Rays of golden light swirled around the 3 golden fruits. From time to time, the golden fruit would emit golden rays of light. The golden rays of light soared into the sky and then dissipated into the void. Golden flame fruit. Lin Feng's eyes widened. It turned out to be the legendary golden flame fruit. Taoist Xian Cheng had entered the magnetic fog lake again and again in order to find the golden flame fruit. Lin Feng hadn't thought that this time it would be a blessing in disguise. Xian Cheng had really found him. However, Taoist Xian Cheng was now in trouble and was attacked by the zombie. Originally, Lei Ming and Taoist Xian Cheng's group didn't deal with each other. They even communicated with Lin Feng and wanted to attack Taoist Xian Cheng, Sun Buping, and Zhao Zhongluan on the boat. But now, it was obvious that the three of them had formed an alliance to deal with the zombie together and then collect the golden flame fruit. 3 golden flame fruits. This value is too great. This golden flame fruit can greatly increase the probability of a cultivator entering the yin-yang realm. If news of this spread, it will cause a storm of blood. Lin Feng murmured and squinted at the golden flame fruit. The weapon used by Taoist Xian Cheng was a silver snake flying sword. This was a treasure-level flying sword. It flashed with a burst of treasure light and was very powerful. Sun Buping took out a jade battle-like magic weapon. Its power was also very shocking. Lei Ming held a giant hammer in his hand. Clang, clang, clang. The 3 people's attacks fiercely bombarded the zombie's body. Suddenly, there was a loud sound of collision. However, such a ferocious attack was unable to break through the zombie's defense. Hiss! Lin Feng couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. The zombie's defense was too amazing. It could even be said that it was unimaginably terrifying. Such a powerful magic weapon couldn't break its defense. In this battle, the zombie was already in an invincible position. The zombie quickly rushed forward and grabbed Sun Buping with its sharp claws. Sun Buping was shocked. He took out a jade talisman and threw it at the zombie. However, the zombie spat out a mouthful of demonic qi. The jade talisman was wrapped in demonic qi and flew back to Lei Ming. With a loud bang, the jade talisman exploded. Lei Ming was blown away by the energy of the jade talisman's explosion. He was dripping with blood and vomited a large mouthful of blood. Damn it! Sun Buping's expression suddenly sank. He didn't expect that his jade talisman didn't work. Sun Buping quickly retreated, hoping to avoid the zombie's attack. However, the zombie's speed was too fast. It instantly rushed in front of Sun Buping and stabbed at Sun Buping with its sharp claws. Puff! The zombie's claws pierced into Sun Buping's chest. Ah! Sun Buping let out an incomparably mournful scream. He didn't die immediately. The next moment, he saw the zombie pull out his heart and then put it in its mouth to chew. This scene could be said to be extremely bloody. Sun Buping's body immediately fell to the ground with a loud bang. This Sun Buping was very sinister when he was alive. He schemed against Lin Feng, Han Yan, Lei Ming, and others. Now, he died here. Was it karma? Let's go. Taoist Xian Cheng's eyes flashed. He shouted in a low voice and fled with Lei Ming. The zombie let out a low roar and quickly chased after them. This Lei Ming is probably going to die. Lin Feng frowned slightly. He observed Taoist Xian Cheng's cold gaze when he looked at Lei Ming. Taoist Xian Cheng probably wanted to scheme against Lei Ming and use him to get rid of the zombie. Soon, the 2 people and the zombie disappeared without a trace. Lin Feng and Zi Yuan quickly rushed in front of the golden flame fruits and picked the 3 golden flame fruits. Let's go, Lin Feng said, and pulled Zi Yuan to the distance. Soon, they disappeared without a trace. A quarter of an hour later, Taoist Xian Cheng, who only had 1 arm left and was covered in blood, rushed over from afar. He seemed to have gone crazy as he shouted excitedly, "They're all dead! The 3 golden fire fruits are all mine!" However, When Taoist Xiancheng rushed to the golden flame fruits, he found that the golden flame fruits had been taken away. Ah, where are the golden flame fruits? Where are my golden flame fruits? Who plucked my golden fire fruit? Taoist Xiancheng roared crazily. Why, in the end, he couldn't bear such a huge blow. He spat out a mouthful of blood, and his face became very pale. Chapter 446. Who is it? Come out. I'm going to kill you. I'm going to cut you into 1,000 pieces. Xiancheng's roar resounded throughout the island. He was crazily looking for the person who had taken the golden flame fruits. Whoosh! The Taoist priest of Xiancheng passed through a dense forest where Lin Feng and Zi Yuan were hiding. One of his arms is broken. Lin Feng scanned Xiancheng with his godly awareness and was slightly surprised. Xiancheng was a martial king of the 10th celestial layer, but his arm had been cut off by the zombie. Maybe because he was in a hurry to find the person who had taken the golden flame fruits, Xiancheng didn't even have time to treat his wound. The current Taoist Xiancheng was at his weakest. Kill him, said Lin Feng, killing intent flashing in his eyes. Lei Ming, and the zombie had disappeared. Lin Feng didn't know if Xiancheng had used some powerful method to kill them. Xiancheng's methods were very strange. Lin Feng wouldn't be surprised if he had trapped or killed the zombie. Even though the zombie was strong, it only had a strong physical body. It was invulnerable. Some formations could also trap the zombie. At that moment, Lin Feng and Zi Yuan could only be safe if they killed Xiancheng. Xiancheng hadn't healed yet. If they waited until he was healed, Lin Feng wouldn't be able to defeat Xiancheng even if he used all his methods. Instead, he would be killed by Xiancheng. Now, taking advantage of Xiancheng's injury, it was a rare opportunity. Moreover, even if he killed Xiancheng, Lin Feng would still be enforcing justice on behalf of the heavens. Xiancheng had used the excuse of bringing people to the magnetic fog lake to deceive many people to follow him to find the golden flame fruits. In the end, many cultivators had died tragically in the magnetic fog lake. Xiancheng's hands were covered in blood. Even though he wasn't a demonic cultivator, he was even more vicious than a demon. Lin Feng didn't know how many innocent people he could save in the future. However, it was not easy to kill Taoist Xiancheng. Even if Taoist Xiancheng was injured, he was still a martial king of the 10th heaven. If he wanted to kill Taoist Xiancheng, he would only have a chance if he ambushed him. Zi Yuan, hide here and don't run around. I'll be back soon, Lin Feng said softly. Although Zi Yuan was a little scared, she still nodded. If you discover that it's not me, attack with your flying sword. Lin Feng said. Yeah. Zi Yuan replied. Lin Feng gave Zi Yuan a treasured artifact-grade flying sword. Moreover, Zi Yuan had already made the treasured sword recognize her as its master. Therefore, Zi Yuan was able to activate magic artifacts as well. Whoosh! Lin Feng silently flew into the distance, following behind Taoist Xiancheng. At the same time, Lin Feng summoned the archaic sage Emperor Qiongqi's clone. The archaic sage Emperor Qiongqi's clone quickly rushed towards the side of the mountain forest, hiding in the dark and waiting for Taoist Xiancheng to appear. As long as Taoist Xiancheng arrived at the place where the archaic sage Emperor Qiongqi's clone was hiding, Lin Feng would order the archaic sage Emperor Qiongqi's clone to attack Taoist Xiancheng. Come out, come out! You dare to steal my golden flame fruit. No matter where you hide, I will find you and tear you to pieces. Taoist Xiancheng's hysterical roar resounded through the forest. He ran madly towards the depths. Roar! Just as Taoist Xiancheng passed by a pile of rocks, the archaic sage Emperor Qiongqi's clone that was hiding beside the rocks rushed out as fast as lightning towards Taoist Xiancheng. It opened its bloody mouth and bit towards Taoist Xian Cheng's head. Taoist Xian Cheng was indeed worthy of being a martial king of the 10th heaven. Facing this sudden attack, his reaction was extremely fast. When he saw the archaic sage, Emperor Qiongqi's clone, he immediately roared, "A mere animal dares to attack me. You're courting death." Taoist Xian Cheng thought that the archaic sage, Emperor Qiongqi's clone, was an ordinary ferocious beast. Actually, that was very normal. After all, the archaic sage, Emperor Qiongqi's clone, looked exactly like a ferocious beast. Taoist Xian Cheng moved to the right and dodged the archaic sage, Emperor Qiongqi's clone. Then, he waved his arm and punched the archaic sage, Emperor Qiongqi's clone. Bang! Along with a muffled sound of collision, Taoist Xian Cheng's powerful punch fiercely landed on the archaic sage, Emperor Qiongqi's clone. Taoist Xian Cheng's face was originally filled with a ferocious smile, but at that moment, he looked astonished. That ferocious beast wasn't made of flesh and blood. "It's a clone, not good." Taoist Xian Cheng's expression changed, and he wanted to retreat. In the next moment, Taoist Xian Cheng let out a painful roar. My head is going to split open. A soul attack. Who ambushed me?" Taoist Xian Cheng beat his head fiercely. He really wanted to pry open his head. That unparalleled pain made Taoist Xian Cheng feel like he was better off dead than alive. Whoosh! At the same time, a treasured flying sword flew out of the white fog towards Taoist Xian Cheng. Lin Feng didn't show himself. He chose to hide in the dark and unleash his flying sword to attack Taoist Xian Cheng. Taoist Xian Cheng's cultivation was too strong. He didn't know if Taoist Xian Cheng had some terrifying secret technique. If he got too close, he might be killed by Taoist Xian Cheng. He went to kill Taoist Xian Cheng, but failed. Instead, he was killed by Taoist Xian Cheng. That was too tragic. Flying sword. Taoist Xian Cheng's face twisted. "I know it's you, Lin Feng. It's you, you little bastard. I felt your aura. You're the one who ambushed me. If you want to kill me, it won't be that easy. I'll capture you and tear you to pieces." Taoist Xian Cheng's senses were terrifying. He sensed Lin Feng's aura hiding nearby. He let out a roar, his gaze extremely sinister. Boom! Taoist Xian Cheng's body emitted a powerful aura. He used it to protect himself from Lin Feng's soul attack. At the same time, Taoist Xian Cheng endured the pain in his head and sent a palm strike towards the flying sword. Roar! The two-headed Qiongqi's roar shook the heavens as it pounced towards Taoist Xian Cheng. Scram! Taoist Xian Cheng was truly terrifying. With a roar, he formed a huge sound wave attack. The powerful sound wave swept out and ruthlessly struck the two-headed Qiongqi. The two-headed Qiongqi's huge body was instantly sent flying. At the same time, Taoist Xian Cheng reached out to grab the flying sword. Crack! Taoist Xian Cheng grabbed the flying sword and sneered, "Kid, the flying sword can't kill me. You're dead." Just as Taoist Xian Cheng was feeling smug, the white fog behind him parted. A figure appeared as fast as lightning and slashed towards Taoist Xian Cheng with a sword. It was Lin Feng. He had hidden behind Taoist Xian Cheng and launched a surekill attack. Now that Taoist Xian Cheng had lost an arm and his soul was severely injured, his combat strength had decreased sharply. Now that he was in front of Taoist Xian Cheng, Taoist Xian Cheng had no time to use his magic treasure to deal with him. He could only rely on his body. This was Lin Feng's chance. "Kid, you finally appeared. It's time for you to die." Taoist Xian Cheng sneered. He turned around extremely quickly. Although he didn't have time to use his magic treasure, Taoist Xian Cheng wasn't worried about his own attack. He directly slapped his palm towards Lin Feng's sword. Daoist Xiancheng was very confident in his attack. With his earth energy protecting his body, it was very difficult for ordinary magic treasures to break through his defense. However, Daoist Xiancheng didn't know that Lin Feng's sword was the Black Dragon Sword. Even a precious weapon would be cut in half by the Black Dragon Sword, let alone a body of flesh and blood. The Black Dragon Sword ruthlessly slashed down, instantly tearing apart Daoist Xiancheng's protective earth energy. Impossible! Daoist Xiancheng cried out in horror. He quickly retreated, but it was too late. Lin Feng's expression was indifferent. Nothing is impossible. Dying under the Black Dragon Sword is not something you want to die. Puff! Lin Feng's powerful sword cut off Xiancheng's arm, and then his sword cut off Xiancheng's head. Black Dragon Sword. So it's this treasure. It's a precious sword from the Godly Sword Manual. I can't die in peace. Daoist Xiancheng screamed and fell to the ground. He twitched a few times and died. Chapter 447. Phew! Looking at Daoist Xiancheng's corpse, Lin Feng heaved a sigh of relief. He was extremely lucky to have been able to kill Daoist Xiancheng. If Daoist Xiancheng hadn't been heavily injured and underestimated his opponent, killing him would have been as difficult as ascending to the heavens. Lin Feng quickly walked to Daoist Xiancheng's side and took his storage ring, then quickly left. Ziyin, back in the forest, Lin Feng called out softly. Sir, I'm here. Ziyin ran out from behind a rock. Let's go, Lin Feng said, and left with Ziyin. They returned to the cave where they had rested before. Sir, are you injured? Ziyin looked at Lin Feng worriedly. I'm fine. Lin Feng smiled and took out the storage ring he had gotten from Daoist Xiancheng. Daoist Xiancheng had been in the magnetic fog lake for many years and had tricked many cultivators into entering the lake to become his cannon fodder in search of the golden flame fruit. Lin Feng guessed that Daoist Xiancheng should have many good things on him. Lin Feng's spiritual sense entered Daoist Xiancheng's storage ring and found that it was about 10 square meters in size, which was more than twice the size of his own spirit ring. Such a large storage ring was extremely valuable. There were more than 10 boxes of spirit stones in the storage ring. There were low-grade spirit stones, low-grade spirit stones, and high-grade spirit stones. Other than that, there were also more than 10 magic treasures. There was a treasure-grade flying sword, which was the most valuable magic treasure. The rest were mostly magic treasures, and there were also 3 spirit treasures. Other than that, Lin Feng also found more than 10 secret manuals and 2 formation books. Was Daoist Xiancheng a formation master? Surprisingly, there were books on deployment spells. Lin Feng checked them and found that they were all yellow-level deployment spell books. They weren't very useful to him, but deployment spell books were extremely rare. Even yellow-level deployment spell books could be sold for an astronomical price. There were also dozens of different kinds of talismans. Among them, there was no lack of powerful offensive talismans. These talismans were also refined by a spirit array master. The distorted runes added a powerful force to the talismans. Daoist Xiancheng's storage ring still had several hundred kinds of precious elixirs. Lin Feng discovered that there were more than 10,000 years old elixirs. Lin Feng secretly thought that this Daoist Xiancheng had collected a lot of good things. Even the inheritors of ancient powers would find it difficult to possess such wealth. Suddenly, Lin Feng's attention was drawn to a scroll. With a single thought, the scroll flew out. Lin Feng grabbed the scroll and opened it. He saw that it was a map. The map depicted the magnetic fog lake in great detail. Even the locations of the ferocious beasts within the magnetic fog lake were clearly marked. It's a map. Are we here? Zi Yuanyuan pointed at a place. Lin Feng nodded. There was a line of words written where they were marked. This area is the Blackwater Mystical Snake's Nest. It's extremely dangerous. Fuck. When he saw those words, Lin Feng couldn't help but curse. That bastard Taoist Xian Cheng had known about the Blackwater Mystical Snake's Nest. The Taoist Xian Cheng had probably never explored this place before, so he had taken the risk to come here and encountered the Blackwater Mystical Snake. Lin Feng and the others had thought that they were just unlucky to have encountered the snake. How could this be considered unlucky? They had come to the Blackwater Mystical Snake's Nest, so it was highly likely that they had been discovered by the snake. With the map, we'll be able to find our way out, but we need a boat. Lin Feng frowned. Because there were ferocious beasts in the magnetic fog lake, they needed a boat with a deployment spell to repel the beasts. Lin Feng didn't know how to use a deployment spell of the Earth level, but he didn't know how to use one. I wonder if there are any ships docked around this island. Lin Feng frowned. He hoped that they could find a boat. Maybe some cultivators had come here before, but they had all died. Otherwise, how could such evil creatures have appeared? They just didn't know if there were any boats. Let's go around and see if we can find a boat, said Lin Feng. Zi Yuan nodded and left with Lin Feng. Brother, this is the island. There's golden light, the golden fire fruit. Must be here. Lin Feng was startled and quickly hid in a tree with Zi Yuan. Soon, a group of more than 10 people arrived. It's them. Lin Feng narrowed his eyes and looked at those people. They were the ones who had attacked them before. The leader of the group was called Life-Stealing Scholar. Lin Feng hadn't thought that these people would come to the island too. I wonder if the Taoist Xian Cheng and the others are here too. Let's go faster, said Life-Stealing Scholar. They were chasing the Taoist Xian Cheng, Lin Feng, and the others. That was how they had found this place. When he thought about the golden fire fruit, his eyes lit up. The group of more than 10 people quickly moved deeper into the island. It's them, whispered Zi Yuan. It's bad. We can't stay on this island any longer. We have to leave as soon as possible. Otherwise, if they search the island, they'll definitely find us. Lin Feng looked grave and solemn. Life-Stealing Scholar and the others weren't good people. If they found out that the golden fire fruit had been taken, they would definitely search the island. The situation would be very dangerous. What should we do now? Asked Zi Yuan. Her face was pale. She was thinking about how ruthless Life-Stealing Scholar and the others were. They could kill people without batting an eye. Let's go and see if we can steal their boat, said Lin Feng. Zi Yuan and Lin Feng left the island and saw the Life-Stealing Scholar's boat. Lin Feng used his godly awareness to check the boat and sighed. There were more than 10 people on the boat, and there were many strong cultivators. It would be extremely difficult to steal the boat. Lin Feng had no choice but to leave with Zi Yuan. The two of them wandered around the island, hoping to find something. If they couldn't find the boat, they would have to take the risk and hide on the island. Prince, look, there's a boat over there, said Zi Yuan, pointing in the distance. Lin Feng looked over and saw that there was indeed a boat. He was very surprised. Had that boat been left behind by a cultivator who had died on the island? Even though he was surprised, Lin Feng was still very happy. He quickly walked over to the boat with Zi Yuan. Prince, we can leave now. Let's get on the boat, said Zi Yuan. Wait, said Lin Feng. But Lin Feng hastily stopped Zi Yuan. What's wrong, Prince? Asked Zi Yuan suspiciously. What an evil chi. There's something wrong with that boat. Chapter 448. Huh, something's wrong? What's wrong? Zi Yuan didn't sense anything wrong because her cultivation was too low, so she couldn't sense it. Although Lin Feng's cultivation level wasn't very high, Lin Feng's soul power was very strong. His soul power was equivalent to a cultivator at the 7th stage of the yin-yang realm. Therefore, Lin Feng's perception of danger wasn't any weaker than a yin-yang realm expert's. At first glance, the boat didn't seem special, but after carefully sensing it, he immediately found something strange. First, there was a gloomy aura hidden in the boat. Although it was deliberately hidden, it couldn't be completely hidden. Second, the boat was too old. Lin Feng even suspected that the boat would sink to the bottom of the lake because of a leak. However, the boat did contain some formations, and they seemed to be much more advanced than the ones on the boat that Taoist Xian Cheng had destroyed. Even so, Lin Feng didn't choose to board the boat immediately. He felt that something was wrong with the boat. Either the boat itself was evil, or there was an evil cultivator hiding on the boat. It was fine if the boat itself was evil, but it was just a boat. So what if it was evil? Lin Feng believed that his willpower was strong enough that he wouldn't be affected. The scariest thing was the second possibility. If there was an evil cultivator hiding on the boat, he and Zi Yuan might be plotted against if they boarded the boat. In the depths of the island, Big Brother, the golden flame fruit, was taken by someone. A cultivator said in a low voice. The life-stealing scholar's expression became extremely gloomy. At that moment, a voice came from not far away. Big Brother, we found the corpse of Taoist Xian Cheng here. Whoosh, 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 the group quickly flew over. The life-stealing scholar checked the corpse and said in a low voice, the time of death is less than 4 hours. There's a 70% to 80% chance that it was done by an accomplice. However, Taoist Xian Cheng's boat was destroyed. We only saw the wreckage and didn't see any other corpses. There are probably a few people who came to this island alive and are hiding on the island now. Let's split up, the life-stealing scholar said. Yes, whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. One figure after another shot out in all directions. Stop hiding, you won't be able to escape. Come out and hand over the golden flame fruits, and our boss will spare your lives. If you don't know what's good for you, only death awaits you. A cold laugh resounded above the island. Prince, they've started searching the island. Zi Yuan said worriedly. Lin Feng nodded solemnly. The area of this island was not particularly large, so it was very difficult to hide. If it was a large island, Lin Feng might choose to hide. However, it was only a matter of time before such a small island was discovered. Fellow Taoist, I hope you can take us out of here. When the time comes, we'll definitely reward you handsomely. Lin Feng cupped his fists and jumped onto the boat with Zi Yuan. After Lin Feng and Zi Yuan boarded the boat, it floated towards the magnetic fog lake. Inside the cabin, it was pitch black and nothing could be seen. Lin Feng sent out his divine will, but it was bounced back by an invisible force. What a powerful soul! It bounced back my divine will. Lin Feng took a deep breath. He and Zi Yuan stood at the front of the boat, but they didn't enter the cabin. The people inside the cabin didn't make any noise either. Lin Feng stared at the cabin cautiously. If there was anything wrong, he would be able to react immediately. Blood. Prince, look, it's blood. Blood is flowing out of the cabin, shouted Zi Yuan in fright. Lin Feng looked over, and his expression suddenly changed. It was really blood. A huge amount of blood was flowing out of the cabin. It was too strange and terrifying. Ah! Suddenly, Lin Feng screamed in agony. It seemed like his soul had been attacked. Lin Feng hit his head with all his strength. Hee. At that moment, eerie laughter came out of the cabin. That laughter made people's hair stand on end. It sounded like the laughter of evil spirits. Then, a dense black fog came out of the cabin. In the black fog, a sharp claw condensed and grabbed at Lin Feng's chest. It's been a long time since I've met a young cultivator with such a bloodline. He's my favorite. The eerie voice came out of the cabin. It was impossible to tell whether it was a man or a woman. It sounded 100 times worse than the cawing of a crow. The sharp claw was about to grab Lin Feng's body. Suddenly, Lin Feng's eyes, which were originally filled with pain, suddenly lit up. He didn't look like he had been attacked by a soul secret technique at all. Lin Feng had been guarding against the evil cultivator in the cabin, so he knew what the evil cultivator was doing. When Lin Feng realized that something was wrong, he hurriedly used the primal chaos ancient lamp to protect his soul. The evil cultivator's soul secret technique was blocked by Lin Feng's primal chaos ancient lamp. However, the evil cultivator didn't know that. He thought that Lin Feng was severely injured, so he attacked Lin Feng. Boom! Lin Feng raised his right hand and threw out a lightning ball. This was a lightning attack formed by the Sky Tyrant lightning art. Lin Feng heard that evil cultivators were most afraid of lightning attacks. Boom! The ball of lightning exploded and blasted away the ghost claw formed by the black fog. Boom, boom, boom. Lin Feng threw a few more lightning balls into the cabin. Boom, boom, boom. A series of explosions rang out, accompanied by the furious roars of the ghost cultivator. Ah, brat, you actually know a secret lightning technique. It hurts. You're going to explode my body. I'm going to kill you. Buzz. At that moment, a black light rushed into Lin Feng's mind. The black light condensed into a small person. It was a soul miniature person surrounded by black fog. The soul miniature person held a treasured sword in his hand. It flew quickly in Lin Feng's mind, wanting to kill Lin Feng's soul. What kind of secret technique is this? Lin Feng was shocked. This was obviously a soul secret technique, and an extremely terrifying one at that. Evil cultivators were most proficient in soul attacks. The soul miniature person that this evil cultivator cultivated was many times stronger than Lin Feng's soul sword. So, you're hiding in your intrinsic magic treasure. I'm going to destroy your intrinsic magic treasure as well. The evil cultivator's eerie voice came out. The soul miniature person came forward with his sword and swung it at Lin Feng's intrinsic magic treasure, the primal chaos ancient lamp. Clang! Chapter 449. It's useless. No matter how strong your attack is, it can't break through my primal chaos ancient lamp's defense. Lin Feng's soul was hiding in the primal chaos lamp. Then, he controlled the primal chaos lamp and attacked the enemy's soul. Asterisk bang. Asterisk once again, the two sides collided fiercely, and a violent collision occurred. Gui Yama's soul was sent flying away by Lin Feng's primal chaos ancient lamp. Damn it! Damn it! The primal chaos ancient lamp is a supreme treasure made of primal chaos ancestral chi. How did you get it? How can there be primal chaos ancestral chi in this world? Gui Yama roared in disbelief. He couldn't believe what he was seeing. Go ask Yama if you're going to die. Lin Feng's expression was indifferent. He controlled the primal chaos ancient lamp to attack the evil cultivator's soul. Asterisk bang, bang, bang. Asterisk the two sides collided fiercely again and again. Azura ghost Luo Yen suddenly felt as if his soul was being hit by a mountain over and over again. The force of the collision was too terrifying. It made Azura ghost Luo Yen feel so depressed that he wanted to vomit blood. Gui Yama's soul secret technique had the absolute upper hand. He could have destroyed this kid's soul, but this kid had such a powerful treasure. Gui Yama's soul quickly retreated from Lin Feng's mind. At that moment, Lin Feng realized that the blood flowing out of the cabin had disappeared. It wasn't real blood, but a scene created by Gui Yama's illusion technique to confuse Lin Feng. Since you want to harm me, I'll eliminate you first. Lin Feng's expression was indifferent. He condensed more lightning balls and threw them into the cabin. Guayama roared furiously. Kid, do you think I can't kill you? Asterisk. Buzz. Asterisk as soon as he said that. A flying sword flew out and slashed at Lin Feng. The flying sword was too powerful. Its flickering fluctuations made Lin Feng's heart jump. It was a high-quality, precious flying sword. Such a flying sword could kill Lin Feng. At that moment, Zi Yuan was already prepared. She took out the flying sword Lin Feng had given her and slashed at Guayama's flying sword. Asterisk clang. Asterisk a dull clanging sound was heard as Zi Yuan's flying sword blocked the attack of Ghost Fiend Yan's flying sword. Although Ghost Fiend Yan's flying sword was more powerful, it was not easy to destroy Zi Yuan's flying sword in a short period of time. Guayama roared furiously. Guayama is bullying me. That's not what heroes do. Lin Feng sneered. A ghost cultivator dares to talk to me about whether I'm a hero or not. Are you kidding me? Yama's attack, Guayama's attack. Guayama's purple earthcore fire. Guayama's Yama. Guayama's fire. Guayama. Ghost Azura Luo Yen said in disdain. Brat, you are really stupid to the extreme. Do you think that every ghost cultivator is afraid of flame attacks? Let me tell you, I've already cultivated to the point where I'm invulnerable to fire and water. Ordinary flames can't hurt me at all. Lin Feng didn't say anything. He took out his heavenly fire and flew into the cabin. Very quickly, a blood-curdling scream came from the cabin. What kind of fire is that? How can it hurt me? The Azura ghost Yin seemed to have seen a lot, and after a short moment of shock, he remembered the purple earthcore fire. He roared, Heavenly fire. You're a heavenly fire. You're just a little general, but you've actually refined the legendary heavenly fire. Guayama was shocked. Ordinary flames couldn't hurt him, but heavenly fire was enough to turn him to ashes. You're quite knowledgeable. Since you know that this is heavenly fire, you won't die unjustly today. Lin Feng looked indifferent. Guayama shouted, You can't kill me. If you kill me, you'll also die in this lake. I have a complete map of the magnetic fog lake. Even if I kill you, I can still find a way out. Lin Feng sneered, ignoring Guayama's pleas for mercy. Guayama wasn't a good person. He was too big of a threat. Killing him was the best choice. Brat, I'm a ghost cultivator. Do you know what kind of existence a ghost cultivator is? Guayama shouted. Lin Feng was startled. Before Guayama, he hadn't come into contact with other ghost cultivators, so he didn't know what kind of existence they were. He frowned and said, What are you trying to say? Ghost Azura Luo Yen roared. Ghost cultivators don't have their own physical bodies. They cultivate with their Yuan spirits, so their spiritual strength is especially powerful. Ghost cultivators' Yuan spirits are usually attached to something such as a sword, a saber, or even a rock. My Yuan spirit is attached to this ghost ship. It's already been 300 years, and I've become one with this ghost ship. If you kill me, this ghost ship will also be destroyed. At that time, the two of you will fall into the magnetic fog lake and be buried with me. Lin Feng frowned. He hadn't thought that such a strange thing could happen. Come back. Lin Feng waved his hand. Immediately, the purple earthcore fire flew back and jumped on Lin Feng's fingertips. Maybe we can talk now, said Lin Feng. Lin Feng said indifferently, I'll take you out of the magnetic fog lake. Guayama said coldly. Lin Feng said indifferently, Aren't you going to invite us in? Guayama removed the terrifying spiritual energy that had enveloped the cabin. Lin Feng wasn't worried that Guayama would attack him again. If Guayama Yama dared to act blindly without thinking, Lin Feng could use his heavenly fire to destroy Gui Yama's soul. Lin Feng and Zi Yuan entered the cabin and saw a distorted black fog floating in the air. It was Gui Yama, ghost cultivator. What a strange cultivator. Why did you become a ghost cultivator? Lin Feng asked. Gui Yama laughed. Gui Yama laughed sinisterly. Why did I become a ghost cultivator? Do you think I want to be neither human nor ghost? Back then, I passed through the magnetic fog lake and died tragically. My primordial spirit attached itself to this ship and didn't die immediately. Later, I found a few demonic cultivators' secret books. They were ghost cultivators' techniques. Now, I've become neither human nor ghost. Gui Yama's voice was filled with unwillingness. Lin Feng was silent. Every year, many people who passed through the magnetic fog lake would die tragically in the lake. There were far too many such incidents. However, Lin Feng didn't sympathize with Gui Yama. After becoming a ghost cultivator, Gui Yama had become a murderous demon. He didn't deserve any sympathy. Lin Feng said indifferently, Your soul attached itself to this ship and didn't die. It seems that this ship itself is hiding some secrets. He looked around the ship. Gui Yama knew that he had let it slip. When he saw Lin Feng's suspicious gaze, his expression changed slightly. Chapter 450. If the physical body was destroyed, the soul would soon dissipate as well. This was common knowledge in the world of cultivators. However, the fact that ghost Azura Luo Yan's soul had been preserved after his physical body had died had aroused Lin Feng's suspicions. Although Lin Feng did not have a deep understanding of ghost cultivators and did not know how they attached their souls to other objects, Lin Feng was very clear about one thing. Before he had obtained the ghost cultivator's secret technique, Luo Yan's soul had not been destroyed because it had been attached to the boat. This was enough to explain many things. There were some strange things about the boat itself. Later on, Luo Yan had started to cultivate the ghost cultivator's secret technique, so the boat had turned into a ghost boat. Lin Feng asked calmly, How long have you been a ghost cultivator? Luo Yan did not want to talk to Lin Feng too much, as he was worried that he would spill the beans again. However, Lin Feng's methods were too powerful and restrained him. If he refused, Luo Yan was worried that Lin Feng would use those terrifying methods to deal with him again. Luo Yan said reluctantly, I've been attached to the ghost boat for 300 years, and I've been a ghost cultivator for 200 years. Lin Feng said, You spent 100 years to become a ghost cultivator? Your cultivation talent is really TSK. When he saw Lin Feng's disdainful expression, Luo Yan was instantly enraged. Ghost cultivators had their own dignity. Moreover, ghost cultivators valued their dignity more than ordinary cultivators. Luo Yan explained, What do you know? Ghost cultivators are the most difficult cultivators. Becoming a ghost cultivator in 100 years is already considered a super genius. I became a ghost cultivator and cultivated for another 200 years. My current soul power is equivalent to a yin-yang realm expert at the 8th stage. When my soul power reaches the level of a creation realm cultivator, I will be able to leave the magnetic fog lake. Lin Feng said with a smile that did not seem like a smile, You managed to become a ghost cultivator in 100 years. That's 100 years before you became a ghost cultivator. Yet your soul was not destroyed. This is truly shocking. Just what kind of treasure is on this ship of yours? Luo Yan's expression changed again and again. He thought that Lin Feng was just chatting casually, but he didn't expect that he would be tricked by Lin Feng again. Luo Yan cursed Lin Feng in his heart for being despicable and shameless, but he didn't answer Lin Feng's question and simply kept quiet. The purple earthcore fire danced on Lin Feng's fingertips. Lin Feng said, "If you don't cooperate with me, then I can only let you have a taste of the purple earthcore fire. Brat, don't go too far. We're in the magnetic fog lake. If you push me too far, we'll just die together." Luo Yen roared angrily. His cold eyes stared fiercely at Lin Feng, as if he wanted to eat Lin Feng alive. Lin Feng sneered. If a normal cultivator had threatened him like this, then Lin Feng wouldn't have acted rashly. However, Lin Feng didn't care about Luo Yan's threat at all. In order to survive, Luo Yan didn't hesitate to become a ghost cultivator that was neither human nor ghost. This showed that Luo Yan was extremely afraid of death. "Then let's see if I dare to burn this broken ship. Moreover, I have a map to control you, so it won't be difficult for me to successfully pass through the magnetic fog lake. At that time, it won't be too late to burn you to death." Lin Feng threatened Luo Yan. When Luo Yan heard this, his face turned green. He thought to himself that he had gone through a lot of hardships to become a ghost cultivator. He didn't know how many hardships he had to go through to reach the manifestation realm. Perhaps in less than 100 years, he would be able to leave this damned magnetic fog lake and live like a normal person. But now, he was going to die at the hands of this brat. He wasn't willing to die like this. "I'll endure you for now. After 100 years, I'll be able to leave this magnetic fog lake and cultivate a body of flesh and blood. At that time, I'll definitely cut you into pieces." When he thought about this, Luo Yan took a deep breath and said, "This ship was originally owned by an extremely powerful cultivator, and it was embedded with a piece of heavenly star soul jade. My primordial spirit was attached to this piece of heavenly star soul jade, which was why it didn't dissipate." Heavenly star soul jade. Lin Feng sucked in a breath of cold air. He had heard from the fire Qilin that this heavenly star soul jade was a type of jade that was born on the bright moon in the depths of the Milky Way world. The moon was the king of the stars. The power of the moon was the most suitable energy to strengthen one's soul, but cultivators couldn't absorb the power of the moon to increase their own strength. However, it was said that some heavenly treasures could absorb the power of the moon, such as the heavenly star soul jade that only appeared on the moon. The heavenly star soul jade was formed by the power of the moon and could absorb the power of the moon. Even if a cultivator's physical body died, they could attach their soul to the heavenly star soul jade and live on. However, the heavenly star soul jade was an extremely rare treasure. The fire Qilin had searched many places in the past, but it hadn't been able to find it. Lin Feng said, "The heavenly star soul jade is really good stuff. I've never seen it before. Let me take a look." "Don't go too far." Luo Yan said gloomily. Lin Feng said coldly, "What? Can't I even look at it? If you don't know how to appreciate favors, I'll have to do it myself." "Humph, you're obviously trying to steal my heavenly star soul jade. This treasure is extremely important to me. I'd rather die with you in this lake than give it to you," Luo Yan said fiercely, said Luo Yan ferociously. He wanted to fight against Lin Feng. "Die with me? Even now, you still don't understand the situation you're in. Even if you want to die with me, do you have the ability to do so? I'll use my heavenly flames to control you, and once we reach the shore, I'll kill you. If you don't believe me, we can fight to the death and see who will emerge victorious." Lin Feng sneered. "You despicable." Luo Yan flew into a rage. Lin Feng sneered. "A demon who kills without blinking an eye is calling me despicable? That's the funniest joke I've ever heard. You think you're sure to win? But if I use the soul disintegration technique, my soul will be destroyed, and the ship will be destroyed as well. At that time, we'll both die in the lake," Luo Yan said fiercely. Soul disintegration technique. Lin Feng couldn't help but curse. Luo Yan knew quite a few soul techniques. Lin Feng knew that he couldn't force Luo Yen into a corner. If Luo Yen really wanted to die with him, he would have no choice but to cry. Said Lin Feng. Let's make a compromise, shall we? What is it? Luo Yen asked. We'll split the Heavenly Star Soul Jade in half. It'll be good for you, good for me, good for everyone. How about it? Lin Feng said. You dream on. Luo Yen roared through clenched teeth. He still needed the Heavenly Star Soul Jade to strengthen his soul. If he gave half of it to Lin Feng, it would be the same as asking for his life. Chapter 4:51. Lin Feng said indifferently, So you're saying that you want to fight me to the death for half a piece of celestial soul jade? Is that really necessary? Isn't it just half a piece of celestial soul jade? Even if you lose half of it, the remaining half will still allow your cultivation to increase rapidly. If you fight me to the death, your body and soul will be destroyed. Think about all the hardships you've gone through over the past few hundred years to reach where you are now. Is it worth it to fight me to the death for half a piece of celestial soul jade? Azura Ghostface fell silent, his expression extremely ugly. Asking him to hand over half a piece of celestial soul jade had pained him greatly. However, when he thought about Lin Feng's words, they did make a lot of sense. When he thought about all the hardships he had gone through over the past 300 years, if his body and soul were destroyed, wouldn't all the hardships he had suffered over the past 300 years have been for nothing? Azura Ghostface gritted his teeth. How can I trust you if I give you the celestial soul jade, and you cross the magnetic fog lake to kill me? What should I do? Won't I die a miserable death, then? It was no wonder that Azura Ghostface would think this way. Lin Feng was too much of a threat to him. Back in the magnetic fog lake, Lin Feng had been worried about his body disintegrating, so he had not fought him to the death. Now that they were on land, all of his worries were gone. He could kill Azura Ghostface, however, he wanted. Lin Feng said, I can make an oath. What do you think? All right, then make an oath. Luo Ghostface's eyes suddenly lit up. Cultivators rarely made oaths. If they broke an oath, they would suffer a backlash from the oath. The sky was usually clear for thousands of miles, but there was thunder and lightning. Why? It was because some cultivators broke their oaths and were struck to death by lightning. Lin Feng smiled and said, Oh, right. Aside from the celestial soul jade, I want something else. I don't think you'll be stingy with it. Hearing Lin Feng's words, Luo Ghostface instantly darkened. He said in a low voice, Kid, stop. Are you done yet? Please don't say that. I've only made one request. How can you call it endless? I think you should at least make 3 or 4 requests before you can use that word. Lin Feng said seriously. Zi Yuan, who was standing at the side, was amused. She thought to herself, Young master is so naughty. This time, this ghost cultivator will be angered to death, right? Luo Yen was indeed angered to death by Lin Feng. He really wanted to cut Lin Feng into 1,000 pieces, then eat all the flesh that was cut off from Lin Feng's body, drink the blood of his soul, and enslave Lin Feng's soul. However, he could only think about it for now. Luo Xian said angrily, You can't be so shameless. Lin Feng said, How am I shameless? I'm just stating my request. As for whether you agree or not, that's up to you. Luo Xian suppressed his anger and sullenness and said, Tell me, what request do you have? You attacked me with a small soul person. That's a pretty good soul technique. Teach me that soul technique, said Lin Feng. Lin Feng said, Luo Xian had the urge to slap Lin Feng to death. The miniature soul-wielding sword was more than just a pretty good soul secret technique. It could be considered a top-tier soul secret technique. Among the dozen or so soul secret techniques that Luo Xian knew, This technique was one of the most powerful ones. Many top-tier organizations might not even be able to produce such a powerful soul secret technique. But now, from this brat's mouth, this powerful soul secret technique of the miniature soul holding the sword was only described as not bad. Luo Xian's expression was gloomy. He wondered if he should give Lin Feng an incomplete copy of the miniature soul-wielding sword for Lin Feng to cultivate. If he cultivated an incomplete copy of the miniature soul-wielding sword, Lin Feng might suffer from qi deviation and die. Luo Xian immediately laughed sinisterly. But at that moment, Lin Feng's voice rang out. "This is a fair trade. Don't try to trick me with an incomplete copy of the miniature soul-wielding sword. I also cultivate a soul secret technique, so I believe that I have a certain degree of understanding of soul secret techniques. If you try to trick me with an incomplete copy of the miniature soul-wielding sword, then this fair trade of mutual benefit will fail. I will have no choice but to get rid of you. Who told you to try to trick me? Of course, if you hadn't, we would still be good friends." Luo Xian was shocked. He hadn't expected Lin Feng to see through his intentions. But after hearing Lin Feng's words, Luo Xian felt so depressed that he wanted to vomit blood. Was this a mutually beneficial trade? This trade is only useful to you, okay? Was this a fair trade? Damn it, I was forced to do this, okay? We're good friends. I really want to slap you to death. You have the nerve to say that we're good friends. How can you trick your good friends like this? Luo Xian felt that he was simply unlucky to have met Lin Feng. This kid's cultivation was obviously not very strong, but his methods were very astonishing. Furthermore, he was able to restrain himself. This made Luo Xian feel like crying. Luo Xian said with a gloomy face, "Why would I use an incomplete copy of the miniature soul-wielding sword to trick you? Although I, Luo Xian, am a ghost cultivator, my character is still trustworthy." As soon as he finished speaking, Luo Xian threw a yellowed scroll to Lin Feng and said, "This is the cultivation method for the complete miniature soul-wielding sword." Lin Feng was delighted. After catching the scroll, he immediately opened it and carefully read every word recorded on it. There were only a few hundred words, but the cultivation method of the miniature soul-wielding sword was recorded very clearly. Lin Feng nodded and said, "Not bad, not bad. At least you didn't use an incomplete copy of the cultivation method to trick me. Now, you should make an oath. If you do, I will give you the heavenly star, Soul Jade." Luo Xian said. Lin Feng raised his right hand and pointed to the sky. "Today, Azura Ghost Yen will give me the heavenly star, Soul Jade. After I cross the magnetic fog lake, I will let Azura Ghost Yen go. I will definitely not harm Azura Ghost Yen. If I violate this oath, may I be struck by lightning and die a horrible death." After swearing the oath, in a flash, a thunderbolt penetrated into Lin Feng's brain and turned into a talisman. Lin Feng knew that it was the oath talisman. If he violated the oath talisman would be activated and lightning would strike him to death. Azura Ghost Yen let out a long breath when he saw Lin Feng make the oath. He threw a purple jade to Lin Feng. This purple jade was clearly the heavenly star Soul Jade. Lin Feng held the heavenly star Soul Jade in his hand. He immediately felt a large amount of moon essence energy enter his body and be absorbed by his soul. His spiritual strength increased at a rate 10 times faster than before. Lin Feng was shocked. This heavenly star Soul Jade was actually so powerful that it could increase one's spiritual strength by 10 times. This was too heaven-defying. No wonder the Fire Qilin had been searching for it. Chapter 452. On the other side of Magnetic Fog Lake, Lin Feng waved at Luo Yan. "We'll meet again." Luo Yan's expression was gloomy. He sneered and thought to himself, "The next time I see you is when I condense my flesh and blood and leave Magnetic Fog Lake. That will be the time of your death." The ghost ship drifted toward the depths of Magnetic Fog Lake and soon disappeared into the thick fog. "Master, have we reached the desolate region?" Zi Yuan asked softly. "No, we need to pass through Fog City to reach the desolate region." Lin Feng said. "Fog City? What's that place?" Zi Yuan asked softly. "Fog City is an ancient city at the border between the East Province and the desolate region. I heard that after passing through Magnetic Fog Lake, we can reach Fog City." Lin Feng said. "Yes." Zi Yuan nodded. This area was shrouded in fog, and visibility was about 20 meters. Beyond that, nothing could be seen. The visibility was much better than in Magnetic Fog Lake, but it was still very low. Fog City was in the depths of the Great Fog World. Lin Feng planned to rest in Fog City before heading to the desolate region. In the vast desolate region, Lin Feng was a little lost. He did not know where to go. The Fire Qilin was not by his side. His clansmen had been captured. Thinking of this, Lin Feng sighed inwardly. When he reached the desolate region, he would first find out what major forces there were and hope to join them to cultivate. Roar! Half a day later, the roar of a beast came from afar. Rumble! Soon, the earth began to shake violently. Soon, a huge monster rushed over. It was 100-meter-tall beast. It looked like a deer, but it wasn't a deer. It looked like a lion, but it wasn't a lion. It looked like a tiger, but it wasn't a tiger. It looked like a cow, but it wasn't a cow. The wild beast in front of him was heavily injured. Its body was covered in wounds and blood. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. A few silhouettes rushed over from afar and soon stopped. Then they took out their flying swords and rushed towards the David's deer. There were 3 men and 1 woman, each of them dressed luxuriously. For example, the woman was wearing a purple gold robe embroidered with phoenixes, a mysterious jade hairpin on her head, a piece of Heavenly Mother jade on her waist, and 2 jade bracelets on her wrists, which were also a pair of magic treasures. There were 7 or 8 magic treasures on her body, and the other 3 male cultivators also had magic treasures on them. Clearly, these 4 young men and women came from extraordinary backgrounds. They took out their flying swords and slashed at the odd beast. Roar. The 4 odd beasts roared and pounced towards the 4 people. However, the flying swords were too fast. Puff, 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 puff. For consecutive piercing sounds could be heard, and the huge body of the odd beast fell to the ground with a loud bang. Dust flew everywhere, and it died on the spot. Ha! The blood and heart of the odd beasts are extremely good ingredients for concocting medicine. We were extremely lucky to have encountered and killed these odd beasts. One of the male cultivators said with a smile. The 4 people walked towards the corpse of the odd beast, and only then did they see Lin Feng and Zi Yuan not far away. The 4 people only glanced at Lin Feng for a moment before moving on. Lin Feng was only a martial general, so he couldn't enter their eyes. However, Zi Yuan attracted their attention. The 3 male cultivators were stunned. They didn't expect to meet such a beautiful girl next to the lake. The female cultivator was also beautiful, but after seeing Zi Yuan, she couldn't help but feel jealous. The cultivator in green smiled and said, "I'm Fan Di. How should I address you, brother?" Lin Feng cupped his fists and said, "Lin Feng, this is my cousin, Zi Yuan." Lin Feng didn't know who these 4 people were, so he didn't say much. Fan Di smiled and said, "So it's Brother Lin. We're all core disciples of the Longyun sect. This is senior brother Song Tianwu, this is junior brother Li Muge, and this is senior sister Li Ruoya." The young cultivator in white was the Song Tianwu mentioned by Fandi, and he should be the leader of their small team. The other young cultivator in black should be Li Muge, said Lin Feng, while bowing hand over fist. Good morning. The female cultivator named Li Ruoya took out the blood, heart, and horn of the odd beasts. She didn't take the rest of the things, but these three things were the most valuable. Song Tianwu stared at Zi Yuan from time to time, and his eyes flashed with amazement from time to time. This made Lin Feng frown slightly, but he didn't say much. Song Tianwu asked with a smile, "Where did Brother Lin and Cousin come from? How did you appear near the magnetic fog lake?" Lin Feng said, "We were cultivating in a sect in the East Province. We crossed the magnetic fog lake with another ship and planned to return to our family." "I see. Are you going to Fog City? I think we can go together and take care of each other on the way," Song Tianwu said. Lin Feng didn't like the way Song Tianwu looked at Zi Yuan, and he didn't know the character of these people, so he declined politely. "We have to turn back to visit a cousin's house in a small town on the way, and then we can go to Fog City. So, I'm afraid we're not going the same way as you." Song Tianwu thought it was a pity. He smiled and said, "In that case, let's say goodbye here. Maybe we can meet again in Fog City. We will stay in Fog City for a few days." "It would be great if we could meet again," Lin Feng said politely and left with Zi Yuan. Song Tianwu stared at Zi Yuan's back and shook his head. "Why is Senior Brother Song so enthusiastic?" Li Ruoya said with a faint smile. Li Muge said with a faint smile, "Could it be that Senior Brother has taken a fancy to the girl named Zi Yuan?" Fandi rubbed his chin and said, "That young girl really does have a unique charm. No wonder Senior Brother looks at her differently." Song Tianwu shook his head with a smile and said, "That girl gave me a strange feeling. You should know that my martial spirit is the perceptive martial spirit. In addition to being able to sense all kinds of treasures, I can also sense some hidden bloodline power. The girl's bloodline seems to be very complicated." Fandi said, "Look at the girl's eyes. She seems to be a snake woman." Li Muge frowned. "Snake women are enchanting. Although the girl named Zi Yuan is young, she is indeed beautiful. But in terms of bloodline, the snake woman's bloodline is very lowly. Well, let's go to Fog City to find Master Guyun to refine the blue blood pill," Song Tianwu said. Hearing the words blue blood pill, Fandi, Li Muge, and Li Ruoya all showed extremely excited expressions. The four of them didn't stop and quickly rushed to the distance, disappearing in the blink of an eye. Chapter 453. Fog City was an especially large city. It was about the size of 5 Crimson Fire cities and had a population of around 30 million. Because Fog City was located at the border between the East Province and the Desolate Realm, it was very lively. Lin Feng and Zi Yuan arrived at Fog City. There was a thick fog outside Fog City. However, the entire Fog City was enveloped by a spell formation, so it wasn't covered by fog. Within Fog City, the factions were very complicated. It was said that there was 1 sect, 3 clans, and 18 factions. This sect was called the Heavenly Thunder Sect. It was an ancient sect that was very powerful. The 3 clans were the Nalan, Hellion, and Gongsun clans. Although these 3 clans weren't considered ancient factions, they were still very powerful because they had Yin-Yang realm experts. The 18 factions were relatively weak. Only a few of the top clans had Yin-Yang realm experts. As for the rest of the clans, even the strongest expert was only a martial king. Of course, Lin Feng didn't plan to visit the various factions in Fog City. He planned to rest in Fog City for 2 to 3 days before deciding on his future. "Sir, there's a bookstore there. It's definitely selling introductions to the various factions in the Desolate Realm. Let's go, Zi Yuan said. Okay. Lin Feng nodded and entered the bookstore with Zi Yuan. There were more than 10 customers in the bookstore. Some were quietly reading, while others were strolling around. Lin Feng discovered that the bookstore was selling rare martial arts manuals. There were even some spirit formations and alchemy manuals. Of course, they were all relatively simple spirit formations and alchemy manuals, but they were still very extraordinary. Sir, what kind of books are you looking for? The shopkeeper asked with a smile. I want books that introduce the various factions in the desolate realm. Lin Feng said, The Chronicle of Wasteland has a very detailed record. The shopkeeper took out a book and gave it to Lin Feng. How much is it? Lin Feng asked. 30 gold coins. The shopkeeper said. Lin Feng clicked his tongue. 30 gold coins for a book was quite shady, but he was too lazy to care about that. He paid the money and sat down with Zi Yuan at a table not far away to read the contents of the book. The divine land of the East County was one of the poorest states among the 3,000 states. It did not even have an ancient force. One had to know that the division of powers in the 3,000 prefectures was extremely strict. There were ancient powers, desolate ancient powers, and ancient holy lands, ancient royal dynasties. Other than these powers, the Martial Soul Guild, the Alchemist Guild, and the Spirit Array Caster Guild were extremely powerful. However, because these three powers were neutral powers, they didn't participate in the struggle for hegemony in the Tianwu continent's 3,000 continents. Therefore, very few people would mention these three powers. There were many forces in the Wasteland region. Among them, the four strongest forces were Nebula Pavilion, 10,000 Laws Sect, Deity Sword Villa, and Blue Cloud Sect. These four forces had all reached the level of an ancient force and were overseen by almighty experts. Nebula Pavilion, 10,000 Laws Sect, and Deity Sword Villa were still powerful, but the Blue Cloud Sect had declined. It was said that the Blue Cloud Sect's secret technique, the heaven-seizing art, had been lost, causing the sect to gradually weaken. The heaven-seizing art was a secret technique that had shaken the 3,000 prefectures in the past. A single heaven-seizing art had crushed countless experts in the 3,000 prefectures. Unfortunately, such a powerful secret technique had become a legend that would never be seen again. Blue Cloud Sect, Lin Feng muttered. Zi Yuan grabbed Lin Feng's hand and said with some heartache, Young master, are you homesick? This was because the small city where the Lin family lived was called Green Cloud City. Now that he saw the words Blue Cloud Sect, he couldn't help but think of the past. Lin Feng smiled and said, No. However, his desolate expression was clearly different from what he had said. In addition to the four ancient powers, there were also 10 ancient powers. These 10 ancient powers included sects, ancient sects, and clans with long histories, although their heritage might not be as long as the four ancient powers. These ancient powers still produced many experts. Let's go and eat something. Lin Feng said. Zi Yuan nodded obediently and left the bookstore with Lin Feng. There was a restaurant not far away. Lin Feng and Zi Yuan went to the second floor and asked for a table near the window. They ordered some food, which was quickly served, and the two of them began to eat. Thump, thump, thump. At that moment, a group of people came upstairs. The leader was a young man who was tall and thin. His footsteps were a little light, and his face was slightly pale. He had obviously overindulged. Young master, look over there. One of the young man's servants suddenly pointed at Zi Yuan. The young man's eyes lit up, and he said, Is she a snake woman? I've heard that snake women are the most seductive. She's extremely flirtatious in bed. The young man waved his hand and quickly walked over. I'm Nalan Kong. How should I address you, brother? the young man asked when he arrived at Lin Feng's table. However, his eyes were fixed on Zi Yuan, which made Lin Feng very unhappy. Are you done eating? If you're done, let's go. Lin Feng placed a gold coin on the table and looked at Zi Yuan. Zi Yuan nodded and stood up to leave with Lin Feng. Nailan Kang's face darkened. What's wrong? Didn't you hear what I asked you? Lin Feng said indifferently. We've just met by chance. Why do you need to know my name? Na Lan Kang smiled and said, That's not necessarily true. Maybe we'll become familiar with each other. Ha ha! Nailan Kang, put away that face of yours. Don't pretend to be approachable. Who in Fog City doesn't know your true nature? You've only taken a fancy to the pretty young lady by this young master's side. A disdainful laugh was heard. In the next moment, a young man in white walked down from the third floor. This young man in white was much more pleasing to the eye than Na Lan Kang. He was very handsome, had a slender figure, and had a smile on his face that was like a spring breeze. It was easy for people to have a good impression of him. When he saw this person, Na Lan Kang's expression sank. He said in a neutral tone, Helianze, don't make yourself sound so noble. If I, Na Lan Kang, like a woman, I'll use normal methods to obtain her. I'm not like you. TSK. I heard that there's a guy in Fog City who even dared to take advantage of his father's 9th madam. Unfortunately, he was discovered before he could do anything and was imprisoned for a year. Helianze's expression became extremely gloomy. Lin Feng could tell that neither Na Lan Kang nor Helianze were good people. Chapter 454. Please make way. My cousin and I still have matters to attend to. Don't block our way. Lin Feng said indifferently. He could guess Nailan Kang and Helianze's identities. Lin Feng guessed that they were the young masters of the Nailan and Helian clans of the Fog City's 3 clans. Fuck, brat, our young master didn't allow you to leave. How dare you leave? Are you tired of living? One of Nailan Kang's servants reprimanded him coldly. Lin Feng's expression darkened. These people were too arrogant. Nailan Kang and Helianze had brought more than 10 people with them, and many of them were experts. Lin Feng sensed that there were at least 4 martial kings. This wasn't a good place to fight. It would be fine if he was alone in the Fog City, but he had Zi Yuan with him. It would be difficult for him to escape. Lin Feng suppressed his anger and said coldly, Then what are you trying to do? Are you trying to force us to stay here? Nailan Kang smiled and said, Brother, don't misunderstand. My servant doesn't know how to speak. I'll reprimand him when we get back. I see that you and I are fated to meet, so I want to invite you to my Nailan clan. We can drink and chat happily. Don't you think so? Lin Feng knew what Nailan Kang was trying to do. He said indifferently, Sorry, I'm not interested. Nailan Kang, I think you should just forget about it. Can't you tell that this brother has serious doubts about your character? If I were you, I would leave tactfully so as not to embarrass myself here. Helianze took the opportunity to mock Nailan Kang. He didn't get along well with Nailan Kang, so he wouldn't let go of an opportunity to attack Nailan Kang. Nailan Kang's expression darkened. He didn't look at Helianze, but at Lin Feng instead. Brother, you probably don't know who I am, right? Nailan Kang, am the son of the Nailan clan's patriarch. My status is noble, and I've lowered myself to befriend you. Are you not giving me any face? At this point, there was a hint of coldness in his tone. Helianze curled his lips and said disdainfully, That's enough. Who doesn't know that you have an ulterior motive? Brother, you don't have to worry. Helianze can't stand people who rely on their family background to do whatever they want. Brother, if you leave with me, Nailan Kang won't dare to touch you. Seeing Nailan Kong and Helian Zay's faces, Lin Feng could only sneer. The two of them were the same. No matter what they did, their goal was Ziyuan. Nailan Kong. Nailan Kong. Lin Feng said coldly, Helian Zay, right? I appreciate your kindness. Nailan Kong, I also appreciate your kindness. My cousin, and I really have something to do. I didn't mean to refuse, so please make way. If there's a chance, I'll invite you to a gathering next time. I'll punish myself with 3 cups of wine. This time, not only Nailan Kong, but even Helian Zay's face darkened. In the eyes of these two, this boy was so unappreciative. Nailan Kong sneered. We don't care if you leave or not, but the one beside you can't leave. Helian Zay said, sell this snake girl to me, and I'll send you out of the city. How about it? Now that the two had made it clear, they obviously had no scruples. How impressive. There was a sneer. Deng, 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 deng. 4 young practitioners came over, and the one who spoke was Li Muge. These 4 people were Song Tianwu, Li Muge, Fan Di, and Li Ruoya of the Longyan sect. They had just come out from Master Guyun's place, and each of them got a blue blood pill, so they were very excited. They planned to have a meal in the restaurant, find a place to rest, and then return to the sect to refine the blue blood pill. But they didn't expect to meet Lin Feng and Zi Yuan here. Brother Song, Brother Li, Brother Fan, Fairy Li, Lin Feng made a fist salute. Zi Yuan also saluted slightly. The 4 nodded slightly. Who are you? How dare you meddle in my business? Nailan Kong looked coldly at the 4 people coming over. Helian Zay also said indifferently, today is really strange. There are so many people who are not afraid of death. The Longyan sect, where Song Tianwu, Li Muge, and the others were from, was ranked 2nd among the top 10 ancient forces in the Waste domain. It was very powerful. As the core disciples of the Longyan sect, their identities were naturally extraordinary. How dare an aristocratic family in a small fog city be so rude to them? Naturally, the 4 of them didn't look too good. Li Muge said coldly, do you know who you are talking to? Pa, but the response to Li Muge was a slap from Nailan Kong. Li Muge was stunned by the slap. Song Tianwu, Fan Di, and Li Ruoya were also stunned on the spot. Someone dared to slap the core disciples of the Longyan sect. How dare you slap me? Li Muge screamed in disbelief. Helian Zay kicked her. With a bang, Li Muge, who was unprepared, was kicked away by Helian Zay for more than 10 meters. Ouch! Li Muge immediately spat out a mouthful of blood. With a flop, she fell to the ground. You are courting death. Song Tianwu and the other 2 who came to their senses roared angrily. How dare you say, we are courting death? I think it is you who are courting death. You are really reckless. How dare you meddle in our business in Fog City? Today, let the young master teach you how to behave. Beat them up and teach them a lesson. Nailan Kong was used to being arrogant. He waved his hand and shouted arrogantly, Yes, master. The people around Nailan Kong shouted loudly, and were about to start. You all come together. Don't ruin the reputation of our Helian family. Helian Zay also waved his hand. Yes, master. The group of people from the Helian family also answered. Lin Feng was a little speechless. These 2 people were really too arrogant. Didn't they know that there was always someone better than them? Li Muge was beaten so badly. There would be a good show to watch. Nailan Kong and Helian Zay's subordinates were about to start. Song Tianwu and the other 2 had been trembling with anger. Open your dog eyes and see what this is. Song Tianwu took out a token and held it in his hand. Chapter 455. When the rest of the guards heard that these people were the core disciples of the Longyan sect, How would they dare to make a move? They were all scared to death. As the second most powerful force among the top 10 ancient forces, the Longyan sect would be the sixth most powerful force in the waste domain. Although the Nalan family and the Hellion family were also very powerful, they were nothing in front of the Longyan sect. There were at least 3 powerful people in the Longyan sect. It was not something that the Nalan family and the Hellion family could provoke. Now everyone was looking at Song Tianwu and the other 3 in horror. "I'll take your lives, you 2 bastards." Li Muge got up from the ground, and his face was completely distorted. He was a core disciple of the Longyan sect, but he was beaten up like this in the small fog city. This was simply a great shame. It would be fine if it was not spread back to the sect, but if it was, how could he face others in the future? Now, Li Muge couldn't wait to cut Nalan Kong and Hellion Zhe into pieces. Misunderstanding. It's really a misunderstanding. Nalan Kong looked at Li Muge in horror. His previous arrogance disappeared in an instant, and now there was only horror. Hellion Zhe on the side was the same. He kept begging, "It's our fault. We didn't recognize Mount Tai. We are willing to compensate." Although they were all second-generation figures. Obviously, this Hellion Zhe was much stronger than Nalan Kong. In such an irreversible situation, Nalan Kong only cared about begging for mercy, and Hellion Zhe even knew the method of compensation to save him. Lin Feng looked at Nalan Kong and Hellion Zhe indifferently. These 2 were simply jackalls of the same tribe. Now that they had kicked an iron plate, they deserved it. They were not worthy of sympathy at all. Clap, clap, 2 loud slaps were heard. Li Muge rushed over and slapped Hellion Zhe and Nalan Kang's faces fiercely. Hellion Zhe and Nalan Kong were sent flying by the force. Wow! The 2 of them spat out large mouthfuls of blood in midair. Within the blood they spat out were a few teeth. Hellion Zhe and Nalan Kong really deserved it. Some diners in the restaurant were discussing in a low voice. Hellion Zhe and Nalan Kong were arrogant and domineering in the fog city. Naturally, they had done a lot of outrageous things. Now that they had kicked an iron plate and were sent flying with a slap, they felt very satisfied. Junior fellow apprentice, the Hellion family, and the Nalan family have to show some respect. Song Tianwu reminded him. If it were anyone else, he would have just killed them. However, these 2 families had Yin-Yang realm experts overseeing them, so he had to be careful. Li Muge rushed over and punched and kicked Hellion Zhe and Nalan Kong. Li Muge rushed over and punched and kicked Hellion Zhe and Nalan Kong. Li Muge rushed, punched, and kicked Hellion Zhe and Nalan Kong. Lin Feng looked at Zi Yuan with a smile. When this little girl first followed Lin Feng, she was very timid because of her unfortunate experience. But after such a long time, Zi Yuan had become a little scheming. Being stared at by her child with a faint smile, Zi Yuan blushed slightly and couldn't help but pinch Lin Feng's palm. Seeing the intimate action between Zi Yuan and Lin Feng, Song Tianwu couldn't help frowning slightly. Song Tianwu was obviously not just suspicious of Zi Yuan's bloodline, as he had said to Li Muge, Fan Di, and Li Ruoya before. Obviously, he had some other thoughts about Zi Yuan. Song Tianwu's change of expression couldn't be concealed from Lin Feng. This was also the reason why Lin Feng was unwilling to have more contact with Song Tianwu and the others. "Ah, spare our lives. Please spare us. We're willing to compensate. No matter what the price is, we're willing to compensate." Nalan Kong and Hellion Zhe were beaten black and blue, but they didn't dare to fight back. They curled up on the ground and begged for mercy. The guards of the Nalan family and the Hellion family were even more afraid to help. Offending the people of the Longyan sect was courting death. Are you junior brother Li Muge? Why don't you give me some face and spare these two? Just then, a voice came from the third floor. Lin Feng looked over and saw a child in blue standing in the corridor and looking at them. This person has such a powerful cultivation. Lin Feng was secretly shocked. This blue-clothed practitioner had a restrained aura. Lin Feng guessed that he was at the peak of the 10th heaven of the martial king realm and would break through the Yin-Yang realm sooner or later. It seems that this person should be a disciple of the Heavenly Thunder sect. Lin Feng's heart skipped a beat. He knew that there was a sect in Fog City which referred to the Heavenly Thunder sect, an ancient force. Greetings, Senior Brother Lei Yun. Song Tianwu and the others obviously knew this young strongman and didn't dare to neglect him. They all cupped their fists and saluted him. Don't be so polite, junior brothers. The practitioner of the Heavenly Thunder sect, named Lei Yun, waved his hand with a smile. Although Li Muge couldn't wait to kill Helian Zhe and Nailan Kong, Lei Yun's identity was extraordinary. Now that he personally came out to plead for mercy, he had to give some face to Lei Yun. Moreover, Lei Yun might break through the Yin-Yang realm soon. It would be beneficial to make friends with Lei Yun now. Senior brother Lei Yun, how dare I not obey your plea? Li Muge cupped his fists and looked at Helian Zhe and Nailan Kong fiercely, saying, "Get out of here. Don't let me see you again. Otherwise, I will tear you into pieces." Yes, let's get out of here. Helian Zhe and Nailan Kong hurriedly got up. Thank you for your help, senior brother Lei Yun. Before leaving, Nailan Kong and Helian Zhe cupped their fists towards Lei Yun, full of gratitude. Okay. Lei Yun nodded slightly. Helian Zhe and Nailan Kong walked out. Before leaving, they looked at Lin Feng fiercely, full of resentment and murderous intent. Lin Feng was a little speechless. It wasn't me who hit you. Why are you looking at me like this? Let's go. Helian Zhe and Nailan Kong waved their hands and quickly went downstairs with their subordinates. Out of the restaurant, Nailan Kong said fiercely, "Are we really going to swallow our anger?" Helian Zhe said gloomily, "We can't afford to offend those people from the Longyan sect, but that boy must die." Nailan Kang's face twisted. "Yes, that boy must die. If it weren't for him, how could we be beaten up like this? And we have offended several core disciples of the Longyan sect." Helian Zhe said, "We will wait and follow that boy. When he leaves the city, we will kill him." Chapter 456. Why don't you come up and have a chat with me? Lei Yun smiled. It's our honor to be invited by senior brother Lei. Song Tianwu and the others cupped their fists. How should I address you, brother? Lei Yun looked at Lin Feng. Lin Feng had a good impression of Lei Yun. He was strong, but he was also very approachable. Lei Yun cupped his fists and said, "Lin Feng, this is my cousin, Zi Yuan. Brother Lin, Miss Zi Yuan, why don't you come and have a drink with me?" Lei Yun smiled. Lin Feng replied, "Thank you for your invitation, Brother Lei." The group then went to a private room on the third floor. Song Tianwu smiled and said, "Senior Brother Lei, you're really in the mood to drink by yourself." Lei Yun smiled and said, "When I'm tired from cultivating, I'll come out alone and think about what I did wrong." Lin Feng's heart skipped a beat. Lei Yun's way of doing things was to reflect on himself. This was one of the most outstanding qualities of a cultivator, but it was also something that very few people could do. Most people could only see their own strengths, but not their weaknesses. In other words, they could see their own weaknesses, but were unwilling to touch them. Lei Yun, on the other hand, was able to examine his own weaknesses. It was no wonder that he was so strong at such a young age. Lei Yun ordered someone to bring out new dishes, and wine. He smiled at Song Tianwu and the others and said, "Junior brothers, when did you come to Fog City? In the past, we went out to train together, but you didn't look for me when you came to Fog City. Do you not see me as a friend?" Song Tianwu hurriedly said, "We didn't think about this matter properly. I hope senior brother doesn't blame us. We originally planned to visit you after we were done with everything, but we didn't expect to meet you here." Leroy smiled and said, "That's right, senior brother. Perhaps this is fate." "Ha ha, then let's drink to this fate." Lei Yun smiled. Everyone raised their glasses. Lei Yun looked at Lin Feng. He did not look down on Lin Feng because of his low cultivation level. Instead, he smiled and said, "Brother Lin, this must be your first time in the Fog City, right?" Lin Feng nodded. "Indeed," Lei Yun replied. "Actually, our Fog City's people are quite friendly. Brother Lin, you should know that no matter where you are, there will always be some vermin." The vermin that Lei Yun mentioned was naturally Nailan Kong and Hellions. Lin Feng smiled and said, "I don't care about these things. I'm just a passerby. There's no need to take it to heart." Lei Yun smiled and said, "Brother Lin, you're really magnanimous, but you can't let your guard down, especially the disciples of aristocratic families. They're usually narrow-minded, so you have to be careful." Lin Feng was slightly surprised, but he immediately nodded and said, "Thank you for your reminder, Brother Lei." Lei Yun smiled. He knew that Lin Feng was a smart person and had already understood his meaning. Although Lin Feng's cultivation didn't seem to be very high, Lei Yun had an intuition that if he wanted to win against this Lin Feng, he might have to pay a heavy price. Although this feeling seemed very absurd, Lei Yun had always believed in his intuition very much. So, if he helped Lin Feng casually, maybe there would be a return in the future. Even if there was no return, he wouldn't lose anything. It was just a casual remark. They chatted quite congenially, especially after drinking some wine. They felt much more familiar with each other. Li Muge put his arm around Lin Feng's shoulder and said, "Brother Lin, I guess you're 18 or 19 years old this year, right? You're still in the martial general realm. Your talent is not very good. I don't think you should go back to the sect in the East County in the future. The East County is far worse than our Waste domain. After you go home, tell the elders at home, and then bring your cousin to our Longyun sect. At that time, I'll help you get the identity of an inner disciple. As for Miss Cun, she can be an outer disciple first. When her cultivation is improved in the future, she can continue to be promoted." Lin Feng couldn't help but smile bitterly. Li Muge was obviously drunk. He said with a smile, "Thank you for your kindness. Brother Li, I'll think about it carefully." "Haha, straightforward. Come on. Let's continue to drink." Li Muge raised her glass and gulped it down. They stayed in the city for 3 days. On this day, Lei Yun came to see them off in person. Lin Feng, Song Tianwu, and others said goodbye to Lei Yun. Outside Fog City, Song Tianwu said with a smile, "Brother Muge was not drunk that day. Brother Lin, you can think about it. Of course, remember, you must bring Miss Cun to our Longyun sect. I think Miss Cun is talented. With more training, she may be able to improve her cultivation quickly." Lin Feng murmured in his heart. Song Tianwu was a good person, but he was too concerned about Ziyuan. This was the reason why Lin Feng was really guarding against these people. He didn't want to fall out with these people because of Ziyuan. Lin Feng cupped his fists and said with a smile, "I'll definitely think about it." "Well, then let's part here." Song Tianwu nodded with satisfaction. "Brother Lin, Miss Cun, have a safe journey. Brother Lin, be sure to bring Miss Cun to our Longyun sect." Fan Di and Li Muge were very enthusiastic and even a little reluctant. It was unknown whether they were reluctant to see Lin Feng leave or reluctant to see Ziyuan leave. "See you later." Lin Feng cupped his fists and left with Ziyuan. Li Ruoya said, "Lin Feng is a good person. Unfortunately, he is 19 years old this year, and his cultivation is only at the 7th heavenly layer of the martial general realm." Then she shook her head slightly and stopped thinking about it. In her opinion, even if Lin Feng really came to Longyun's sect in the future, there would not be too many interactions between them. After all, there was a gap between their identities. "Well, let's go," Song Tianmu said. The few of them nodded, and each of them took out a flying sword. The flying swords that they took out quickly grew bigger. They jumped onto the flying swords and drove them into the distance. In the blink of an eye, they had disappeared without a trace. Lin Feng and Ziyuan quickly moved in another direction, which was the direction of Northern Wasteland City. Northern Wasteland City was one of the 10 great ancient capitals of the Wasteland City. Many great forces had offices in Northern Wasteland City. Lin Feng wanted to go to Northern Wasteland City to see if the 4 great sects were recruiting disciples. "Little boy, you can't escape," a cold voice came from behind. Dozens of silhouettes were rushing over. The ones in the lead were Nailan Kong and Helian Zhe. Behind Nailan Kong and Helian Zhe were 6 strong cultivators of the Martial King realm. Nailan Kong and Helian Zhe had obviously come prepared. They wanted to kill Lin Feng here. Chapter 457. "Prince, there are so many of them." Ziyuan's face turned deathly pale when she saw them. Lin Feng said, "Don't worry, it's all right. Little boy, you won't be able to escape. Stop quickly, and I'll give you a quick death. If I catch up with you, I'll make you wish you were dead." Nailan Kang's voice was filled with hatred. Nailan Kong was smiling evilly. "Little boy, even if you surrender, I'll make you wish you were dead." Lin Feng obviously ignored Nailan Kong. He didn't believe Nailan Kang's words. He said to Ziyuan, "Hurry up and fly ahead. Don't wait for me. I'll catch up with you once I'm done with these people." "But Prince," Ziyuan wanted to say something, but Lin Feng interrupted her. Lin Feng patted her head and said, "Be good." Ziyuan's lips trembled. She knew that her prince had stayed behind to fight with his life on the line. Ziyuan hated herself for being so weak. If she had been strong enough, her prince wouldn't have had to stay behind to fight with his life on the line. He had stayed behind because he was worried that she wouldn't be able to escape. That was why her prince had stayed behind to fight with his life on the line. He wanted to buy time for her to escape. If she had been strong enough, she would have been able to help her prince. But now, she couldn't do anything. Ziyuan hated herself for being so weak, but she knew that she couldn't stay here because her cultivation was too low. If she stayed here, she would only be a burden to the young master. She activated her robe and floated in the air before quickly flying off into the distance. When Helian Zhe saw that Lin Feng had stayed behind and Ziyuan had left, he said disdainfully, "Little boy, do you think you can stop us? I suddenly thought of a good idea. We won't kill you. We'll capture you and bring that little girl here. We'll show you how we do it." "Ha, that's a great idea. I can't wait." Nailan Kong burst into laughter. When Lin Feng heard them, he looked glum. Those 2 people were worse than animals. "You're all courting death." Lin Feng looked at Nailan Kong and Helian Zhe coldly. "Kid, is there something wrong with your head? Even now, you still dare to boast shamelessly before us." Nailan Kang's face was full of disdain. "Attack!" Helian Zhe waved his hand. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. More than a dozen figures quickly flew out. These were more than a dozen martial generals to deal with Lin Feng, a small fry in the martial general realm. The other party did not take him seriously at all, nor did they send out Marshal King realm experts. These experts had hideous smiles on their faces. They looked at Lin Feng as if they were looking at a dead man. In their hearts, they were even thinking that after the young master was done with that girl, would he also let everyone have a good time? Nailan Kong and Helian Zhe had done this more than once or twice. They had once defiled some women, and after defiling them, they would directly reward them to their subordinates. Things like being raped to death by a group of subordinates had happened before. In fact, such things were happening every day, every hour, and every moment. Wherever there were people, there would be desire. Where there was desire, there would be sin. And this time, it was Lin Feng who had encountered it. Boom, boom, boom. More than a dozen martial general realm experts all attacked Lin Feng. Lin Feng's expression was cold. He quickly flew out like lightning and rushed into the crowd. Ordinary martial general realm cultivators were like ants in Lin Feng's eyes. "Kid, are you courting death?" Seeing that Lin Feng actually dared to take the initiative to attack, the martial general realm cultivators immediately felt that they had lost face. They all looked indifferent as they rushed towards Lin Feng. Bang, bang, bang. Lin Feng channeled the Sky Tyrant lightning art. Bolts of lightning surged out and attacked these people. Following the sound of violent collisions one after another, the martial general realm cultivators were sent flying. Cracking sounds were also heard. It was unknown how many bones in their bodies were broken. The purple lightning ruthlessly bombarded their bodies, directly tearing them apart and killing them on the spot. More than a dozen martial general realm cultivators were killed by Lin Feng in one round. How is this possible? Nailan Kong and Helian Zhe's expressions were as if they had seen a ghost. They exclaimed in disbelief. Wasn't that kid in the martial general realm? How could he be so powerful? Could it be that this kid is hiding some powerful magic treasure on him? Did this kid borrow the power of a magic treasure? Nailan Kong and Helian Zhe thought of the same thing at the same time, and thought of this. Boundless greed immediately appeared on their faces. If they could obtain such a powerful magic treasure, wouldn't they be able to greatly increase their battle strength? Thinking of this, Nailan Kong and Helian Zhe shouted, "Capture him alive! We must capture him alive!" Ha! This kid really has a lot of secrets on him. The two of them had the same idea. They were even thinking about how to make Lin Feng give up on such a powerful magic treasure after they captured him. Both Nailan Kong and Helian Zhe were thinking about this problem. After all, there was only one magic treasure. It had to be said that these two fellows were thinking quite far ahead. Hearing Nailan Kong and Helian Zhe's orders, the remaining 30 martial general realm cultivators rushed forward and attacked Lin Feng. More than 30 people besieging one person. In these people's opinion, Lin Feng would definitely be unable to resist. Helian Zhe and Nailan Kong coldly looked at the besieged Lin Feng. The 6 martial king realm cultivators also looked on coldly as the 30 martial general realm cultivators besieged Lin Feng. Humph! Lin Feng coldly laughed. Facing the 30 martial general realm cultivators besieging him, he moved again. Lin Feng rushed into the crowd as if he had entered an uninhabited area. Bang, bang, bang. Dense purple lightning exploded, and the martial general realm cultivators were sent flying. Their bodies exploded, and they died on the spot, accompanied by blood-curdling screams. More than 30 martial general realm cultivators were killed by Lin Feng in the blink of an eye. When Nailan Kong and Helian Zhe saw that so many people had died, not only were they not afraid, they were even more excited. In their opinion, the stronger Lin Feng was, the more powerful Lin Feng's magic treasure was. So what if a few dozen of their subordinates had died? In any case, the Nailan clan and the Helian clan were large and powerful. After these people died, they could continue to recruit strong cultivators. There were many people who wanted to join the two great clans. It's up to you. Nalen Kong and Helian Zhe looked at the six martial kings. In their opinion, even if Lin Feng relied on his magic treasure, he would still die under the joint attack of the six martial kings. Prince, don't worry, we will definitely deal with this little brat. The corners of the six martial kings' mouths curled up. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. The six martial kings all moved and surrounded Lin Feng. Lin Feng couldn't help but take a deep breath. Among the six martial kings, there were two martial kings of the third celestial layer, two martial kings of the fourth celestial layer, one martial king of the fifth celestial layer, and one martial king of the sixth celestial layer. The most terrifying ones were the two martial kings of the fifth and sixth celestial layers. If they joined forces with the other four martial kings, they would definitely be able to kill him. Lin Feng was very clear about this. If he was the slightest bit careless, he would die. Chapter 458. Brat, what kind of treasure do you have? I'm really curious, said a cultivator of the sixth Tian of the Qi layer, looking at Lin Feng indifferently. You want to know? Kneel down and kowtow, and I might tell you. How about it? Lin Feng sneered. The strong cultivator of the sixth celestial layer was infuriated and said coldly, "Infuriating me now is not a wise choice because you might lose your life because of it." Is that so? I don't think so. Lin Feng sneered. Do you think you can survive our siege? Sneered a martial king expert of the fifth firmament. Do you think you can survive our siege? You're daydreaming. The other experts laughed disdainfully. Boom! Six strong cultivators of the Huangqi layer surrounded Lin Feng. Bang, 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 bang. The sound of violent collisions resounded. Lin Feng was in a lot of trouble, mainly because the two fifth firmament and sixth firmament martial king experts had put Lin Feng in a difficult situation. The two of them were exceptionally strong. They held Lin Feng back, while the other four could attack Lin Feng with all their strength. Clang! A loud sound was heard, and Lin Feng was sent flying. His face was pale. If it had been someone else, they would have been seriously injured. But Lin Feng's body was too strong, so he was able to withstand the terrifying power of the attack. Your body is so strong. Everyone was shocked. Nalen Kong shouted excitedly. It seems like this brat has an extremely powerful body tempering technique. Helian Zhe laughed loudly. That's great. Let's capture this brat and get all his secrets. The more secrets Lin Feng had, the more excited Nalen Kong and Helian Zhe became. They believed that no matter how many secrets Lin Feng had, they would eventually obtain them. Boom! The six experts of the Martial King realm attacked again. Lin Feng looked indifferent. He had to get rid of the cultivator of the sixth celestial layer. That cultivator was the strongest. If he could get rid of him, he would have a chance to turn the tables. If he couldn't deal with him, he would be in danger. Bang! The two sides started fighting again. Lin Feng was surrounded by six strong cultivators of the Huangqi layer. Lin Feng was surrounded by danger and was blown away a few times. Brat, it's time to end this. The sixth firmament martial king expert flashed behind Lin Feng and fiercely punched Lin Feng, sending Lin Feng flying a few hundred meters away. There was a thump. Lin Feng fell into the forest and stopped moving. He wasn't killed, was he? The fifth firmament martial king expert frowned. The sixth firmament martial king expert said, I don't think so. I controlled the strength of my punch. He must have fainted. The six martial king realm experts took a deep breath and withdrew the protective upstanding qi that enveloped their bodies. Master, that brat has been dealt with. The expert in the sixth heaven of the martial king realm reported. Excellent. Let's go take a look. Nailan Kong and Helian Zhe waved their hands. The two of them and the 6 martial kings walked towards Lin Feng. But as soon as they reached Lin Feng's side, the 6th firmament martial king expert suddenly let out a blood-curdling scream. He hugged his head and cried out in pain. Whoosh! At the same time, Lin Feng, who had been lying motionless on the ground, suddenly shot up and attacked the 6th firmament martial king expert. Just now, Lin Feng had only pretended to faint, because Lin Feng knew that when the opponent used the protective qi, it would be difficult for his soul sword to break through the protective qi and hurt the 6th firmament martial king expert. Therefore, he could only use his wits to win this battle. He pretended to have fainted. Sure enough, these people were fooled. Lin Feng seized this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity and instantly activated his soul sword, attacking the 6th firmament martial king expert. Those people didn't have time to react. Lin Feng had already arrived in front of the cultivator of the 6th celestial layer and used his palm as a blade. Lin Feng slid through the air. Puff! A tearing sound was heard. The 6th firmament martial king expert's head directly flew into the sky. Blood spurted out. He died on the spot. Not good. This brat is cunning. Master, retreat quickly. The 5th firmament martial king expert was the first to react and shouted loudly. Nailan Kong and Helian Zhe paled and quickly retreated more than 10 meters. The two of them roared at the same time, "Kill him!" They were frightened by Lin Feng's methods. At this moment, they did not care about anything else. They just wanted to kill Lin Feng as soon as possible. Under the leadership of the 5th firmament martial king expert, the 5 martial kings once again rushed toward Lin Feng. But without the 6th firmament martial king expert holding the line, these people's defeat had long been doomed. Come out, archaic divine Emperor Qiongqi's clone. Lin Feng waved his right hand, and a ray of light shot into the sky. Roar! The roar resounded through the forest. The 2-headed Qiongqi rushed out and directly pounced on the 5th firmament martial king expert. Bang! The two sides collided fiercely. The 5th firmament martial king expert was immediately blocked by the 2-headed Qiongqi. Lin Feng, on the other hand, activated the 5 devouring martial spirits and entered the strongest state, the ultimate state of the 5 martial spirits. Great fusion! Boom! The 5 devouring martial spirits fused together and formed a powerful confining magnetic field, enveloping the 4 martial king experts. How is this possible? The 4 martial king realm experts found that their movements had become extremely slow. Lin Feng walked toward the 4 people step by step. Go to hell! Along with that devilish voice, Yi Zichen's voice sounded. Whoosh! Lin Feng moved as fast as lightning. Puff, 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 puff. The sound of flesh being pierced rang out. Lin Feng held the black dragon sword and killed the 4 martial king experts in succession. Run! Nailan Kong and Helian Zhe were almost scared out of their wits. They turned around and fled. The 5th firmament martial king expert's expression changed drastically. He wanted to escape, but he was held back by the 2-headed Qiongqi. Lin Feng rushed forward and cooperated with the 2-headed Qiongqi. The 2-headed Qiongqi firmly entangled the 5th firmament martial king expert, while Lin Feng slashed with the black dragon sword. No, the expert at the 5th heaven of the martial king realm let out a terrified cry. Pucci! But in the next moment, his head was chopped off by Lin Feng's sword. Blood splattered everywhere as the headless corpse fell to the ground. Nailan Kong and Helian Zhe frantically fled into the distance. They only wanted to escape now, and they were both trembling in fear. Whoosh! But at that moment, a figure descended from the sky and blocked the two of them. Lin Feng's golden wings were too fast. It was easy for him to catch up to them. Spare. But before Nalan Kong and Helian Zhe could say the word spare, Lin Feng had already swung the black dragon sword at the two of them. Puff, puff, two ripping sounds were heard. Nalan Kong and Helian Zhe felt pain in their necks. They reached out to cover their necks, but blood gushed out. How could this be? How could we die here? The two of them muttered, full of unwillingness. Then they fell to the ground and twitched a few times before losing all signs of life. Chapter 459. Zi Yuan was waiting for Lin Feng anxiously. From time to time, sparkling and translucent tears rolled down her cheeks. She looked so delicate and pitiful. I have to become a powerful cultivator in the future. I don't want to be a burden to my master anymore. Zi Yuan bit her lip. Swoosh. In the distance, a silhouette flew over. When Zi Yuan saw that familiar face, she was so happy that she cried and jumped into his arms. Master, you're finally back. I was so worried. Zi Yuan wept like a pear blossom in the rain. Lin Feng comforted her. I'm fine, aren't I? We can't stay here any longer. Let's go. Lin Feng and Zi Yuan quickly left. Fog City, the Nalan clan. Oh no, something big has happened. A guard of the Nalan clan rushed to Nalan Hong's study. The housekeeper, who was waiting on him, came out and said, Why are you in such a hurry? What's wrong with you? Yes, something has happened to the master, the guard said with a pale face. When he heard that something had happened to the master, the housekeeper's expression changed drastically. The clan leader only had one son, Nalan Kong. What happened? Nalan Hong walked out and asked gloomily. Nalan Hong looked like he was in his 40s. He had a medium build and an aura of superiority. The guard said in a panic, The master has been killed. What? Kong, has been killed? Nalan Hong couldn't believe it. His face was distorted. Nalan Kong was the only son of the Nalan clan. Because Nalan Kong was the only son of the Nalan clan, even though Nalan Hong knew that Nalan Kong had committed crimes outside, he couldn't bear to punish Nalan Kong. But now, Nalan Kong had been killed. Who? Who did it? Nalan Hong shouted furiously. It was a young man with a young girl. The young master took a fancy to the young girl and chased after the young man. But he was killed. The guard said weakly, I don't care who that little brat is. I'll tear him to pieces and avenge Kong. Nalan Hong roared. He didn't care who was right or wrong in this matter. Nalan Hong only knew that Nalan Kong was killed, and now he only wanted to take revenge. You have a portrait of that kid? Nalan Hong asked coldly. Yes, I've already asked the witnesses who saw him in the restaurant to draw a portrait of him. The guard took out a piece of paper. There was a picture of a bright and handsome young master. It was Lin Feng. Do you know which direction they fled in? Nalan Hong asked with a gloomy expression. The guard replied, It's said to be in the direction of the northern wasteland city. I'll go there personally. I'll cut him into pieces and avenge Kong. As soon as he finished speaking, Nalan Hong soared into the sky and flew into the distance. At the same time, in the Helian family, the clan leader, Helian Zheng, had a gloomy look in his eyes as he ordered, Bring the portrait and let the Helian clan's death warriors chase after that brat. Even if we have to chase him to the ends of the earth, we must take his life. Yes, the third elder of the Helian clan received the order and left to give instructions. The clan leader, Helian Zheng, didn't let his hatred get to his head and directly chase after Lin Feng. The main reason was that Helian Zheng had 5 sons, unlike Nalan Hong, who only had 1 son. More than a year ago, when Helian Zhe had almost raped his beloved 9th madam, Helian Zheng had already given up on his son. Of course, giving up on his son was one thing, But now that Helianze had been killed, Helianzheng had to avenge him. Northern Wasteland City, one of the 10 great ancient capitals of the Huangyu region. The Northern Wasteland City was gigantic. From a distance, it looked like a wild beast crouching on the horizon. It gave people a suffocating feeling. The city walls were 1,000 meters tall and made of an unknown black rock. The streets of the Northern Wasteland City were even wider. The main street was 50 or 60 meters wide, and there was an endless stream of people and carriages. No wonder it's one of the 10 great ancient capitals of the Huangyu region. Walking on the streets of the Northern Wasteland City, Lin Feng couldn't help but sigh. This was the first time he had seen such a huge ancient city. When he had first seen it, he had indeed felt a sense of awe. Master, there are so many people in the Northern Wasteland City. Looking at the densely packed streets, Ziyuan couldn't help but stick out her tongue. Lin Feng said, "The Northern Wasteland City is one of the 10 great ancient capitals of the Huangyu region. It's a place where cultivators gather." After pausing for a moment, Lin Feng continued, "Let's find an inn to stay in first, then we'll think about the future." "Okay." Ziyuan nodded obediently, following Lin Feng's advice. The two of them found an inn and asked for a room, with 2 rooms. After resting for a day, Lin Feng planned to go to the place where the 4 great forces were stationed in the Northern Wasteland City to ask if they had any plans to recruit disciples. The 4 great forces were Nebula Pavilion, 10,000 Dharma Sect, Deity Sword Villa, and Blue Cloud Sect. Now that the Blue Cloud Sect was in decline, its strength had been left behind by the other 3 great forces. The other 3 great forces also had their own areas of expertise. Nebula Pavilion was good at soul cultivation, 10,000 Dharma Sect was good at various divine ability inheritances, and Deity Sword Villa was good at sword arts. As for the Blue Cloud Sect, Lin Feng didn't know what this sect was good at because its secret techniques had been lost. Lin Feng leaned towards joining Nebula Pavilion or 10,000 Dharma Sect. If he joined Nebula Pavilion, he would be able to learn the method of soul cultivation. In the future, he would be better at soul attacks. On the other hand, 10,000 Dharma Sect was better at secret techniques that were displayed through the physical body, such as various ancient divine abilities. Lin Feng and Ziyuan went to ask around, and he found out that the few great forces would recruit disciples every year. Of course, it wasn't easy to join these great forces, and one needed to be extremely talented in order to have a chance. If one didn't have talent, they wouldn't even be able to become an odd-job disciple. The place where they recruited disciples wasn't in the Northern Wasteland City, but in the 4 great ancient sects. Lin Feng planned to stay for a few days, and then go with Ziyuan to Nebula Pavilion and the other great forces to see if he could join them. On the way back, when Lin Feng and Ziyuan passed by the auction house, someone shouted, "The auction will be held in 3 days. Those who want the auction strategy, come quickly." Many people gathered around. The auction strategy cost 1 gold coin, and it was only a few pieces of paper. It was ridiculously expensive, but it couldn't dampen everyone's enthusiasm. Lin Feng also bought an auction strategy and planned to go back and take a look to see if there was anything he needed. Of course, the auction items that were introduced in the auction strategy were only a portion of all the auction items. There were many precious auction items that weren't recorded, but even just a portion of the auction items was enough to shock people. Many treasures were enough to make people's hearts beat faster. Chapter 460. Silver Armor, a high-class precious weapon. It's as thin as a cicada's wings and is very comfortable to wear. Demon Hunting Sword, a divine sword made by a Fortune Realm cultivator using dark sky demon iron. It's indestructible and can cut through iron as if it were mud. Ancient pill recipes, a record of 36 ancient pills, and the steps to concoct them. Underground Secret Territory Map, a record of a secret territory in the underground world. It's rumored that a Fortune Realm cultivator created this secret territory. It's highly possible that the Fortune Realm cultivator left behind his legacy. Lin Feng clicked his tongue when he saw the dazzling introduction. As expected of an ancient auction house like the Northern Wasteland City, the items sold here were incomparable to those sold in Sangharan City. Of course, Lin Feng knew that even the Northern Wasteland City auction house belonged to the ancient Jiang family. Lin Feng couldn't help but think of Jiang Yudi's beautiful face. Had she left Sangharan City? Blood Spirit Ghost Face Vine, a demonic vine that grows in the depths of the underground world. It's 3,100 years old and is the main ingredient used to concoct many pills. Suddenly, Lin Feng's eyes locked onto an item. It was the Blood Spirit Ghost Face Vine, the main ingredient used to concoct the ancient blood demon pill. Lin Feng took a deep breath. Lin Feng had concocted the ancient blood spirit pill before. It was a pill that could increase the strength of one's bloodline. It had sold for a sky-high price at the Sangharan City auction house. The ancient blood demon pill was a pill that could restore one's bloodline memories. Lin Feng's heart skipped a beat. Zi Yuan has the blood of a snake woman, but it's not very strong. She should have the blood of a demonic snake in her body, right? Why hasn't it been restored? Is it because her blood isn't very strong, or is it because it's being suppressed? Lin Feng could see that Zi Yuan's cultivation talent wasn't very good. It was mainly because her blood was too weak. If the demonic snake bloodline within Zi Yuan's body could be revived, then Zi Yuan's cultivation talent would become extremely shocking. Even if she couldn't compare to those absolute geniuses, she would still be much stronger than ordinary people. We can buy the Blood Spirit Ghost Face Vine and concoct some ancient blood demon pills for Zi Yuan. She hasn't been in a good mood lately because she wants to become stronger, but she's not very talented, said Lin Feng. Lin Feng naturally understood Zi Yuan's thoughts very well. After several life and death crises, Zi Yuan had always felt that she was the one who had dragged him down. She had always been in a state of deep self-blame. Although Lin Feng had always been trying to persuade Zi Yuan, how could he not know? Zi Yuan was still blaming herself and was unable to extricate herself. She found it hard to forgive herself. In addition, Zi Yuan's cultivation speed was simply too slow, causing her to feel increasingly depressed. If this continued, Lin Feng was truly worried that something would happen to Zi Yuan. Most of the time, a healthy person's body wouldn't have any problems, but when they were overwhelmed by negative emotions, it could lead to serious problems in their body and eventually lead to their death. On the other hand, some people who were seriously ill and didn't seem to be able to live for much longer could recover in the end. That was the impact of negative emotions on a person. Zi Yuan's depression, anxiety, self-blame, sadness, and pain all made Lin Feng worried. Now, Lin Feng had found a way to help Zi Yuan get rid of her negative emotions. After making up his mind to go to the auction house, Lin Feng put the auction house guide away. He wasn't interested in the other things. Over the next 3 days, Lin Feng studied the Secret Soul technique. He could sense that the Secret Soul technique was much more powerful than the Soul Sword technique he had learned before. Once he mastered it, it would become even more terrifying. 3 days passed in the blink of an eye. The auction was finally held. People came and went in front of the auction house. It was bustling with noise and excitement. Naturally, not everyone was qualified to enter the auction house. Because the Northern Wasteland City was an ancient city, there were many strong cultivators, and the various influential groups were always at odds with each other. There was a limit to the number of people allowed to enter the auction house. Only those who were extremely strong or had extremely noble backgrounds were qualified to enter. Little boy, this auction house isn't a place for young people like you to enter. Hurry up and leave. Lin Feng and Ziyuan were stopped by a guard. Lin Feng flicked his finger and a card flew out. The guard caught it. That's a purple gold VIP card. The guard commander's expression suddenly changed. Jiang Yudi had given that card to Lin Feng, and it was a symbol of his status. The guard was an yin-yang cultivator, but when he saw the card, his expression changed again. Lin Feng's cultivation wasn't very high, but cultivation wasn't everything. Some people were born into powerful groups, and that was an advantage. The world wasn't fair. How should I address you, sir? Asked the guard cautiously. Only almighty cultivators could have such a card, but Lin Feng had one. The guard didn't understand why Lin Feng had such a card. A purple gold VIP card? Who is that little boy? Many people were astonished, whether they were people who were about to enter the auction house or cultivators who were just watching. They all looked at Lin Feng in shock. They obviously knew what that card meant. What? Do you really want to dig out my background after entering the auction house? Sister Yudi didn't say that when she gave me this VIP card. Lin Feng said indifferently. When the guard heard Lin Feng say Sister Yudi, his body trembled. He naturally thought of Jiang Yudi. He carefully handed the VIP card to Lin Feng and smiled. So, you're a friend of Miss Yudi. Please don't blame me, sir. I'm just doing my job. Lin Feng nodded and put the VIP card away. Sir, if you see Miss Yudi, please send my regards to her. I'm Sita Ming. The guard looked at Lin Feng hopefully. Lin Feng couldn't help but sigh. A yin-yang realm cultivator could be considered a big shot in any organization, but in a powerful organization like the ancient Jiang family, their status could only be considered ordinary. The ancient Jiang family, which had conferred titles to the gods of the ancient Vermilion Bird Pavilion, was really terrifying. All right. Lin Feng nodded. The guard called Siduming rubbed his hands excitedly. He quickly called a beautiful servant girl over and asked her to bring Lin Feng and Zi Yuan to the VIP box. The servant girl knew that Lin Feng had an extraordinary status, so she served him carefully. Lin Feng and Zi Yuan were led into the auction house by the servant girl. Chapter 461. The auction house could hold about 10,000 people. There were VIP boxes set up in the middle of the floor. The servant girl led Lin Feng and Zi Yuan to one of the VIP boxes. Once the curtain of the VIP box was pulled open, everything outside could be seen. However, the people outside could not see what was going on inside the VIP box. This was because the VIP box was covered by a restriction that prevented others from probing. Inside the VIP box, there was also an inner door. If the guests inside the VIP box did not want to expose themselves, they could leave through the inner door after the auction ended. Lin Feng and Zi Yuan sat down as the servant girl served them tea. Then she took out a booklet that was more than 10 pages thick and inlaid with gold. She said respectfully, "Sir, all the auction items are recorded in this booklet. You can take a look at it first. If you see something you like, you can choose to bid for it when it's time for the auction." Okay, Lin Feng nodded, but he didn't flip through the booklet. Lin Feng was mainly here for the blood spirit ghost face vine. Outside, cultivators entered the auction house one after another. The seats that were originally slightly empty were quickly filled with people. Even in the northern wasteland city, the auction would only be held once every 3 months, so every time the auction was held, it would always attract a lot of people. Dong, dong, dong. 2 hours later, 3 gongs and drums were sounded. The auction house quieted down. 2 cultivators walked out. One was an old man, and the other was a beautiful female cultivator. This was the usual combination of auctions. I am Gu Tianma, the auctioneer of this auction. On behalf of the Northern Wasteland City Auction House, I welcome everyone. The old man was full of smiles. The female cultivator smiled sweetly and said, I am Song Yenner, the assistant auctioneer of this auction. I hope that everyone can compete enthusiastically because there are many good things to be auctioned today. Gu Tianma clapped his hands, and a servant girl carried a tray onto the stage. All of a sudden, the temperature in the huge auction hall dropped. The first item is a jade cold toad. Gu Tianma lifted the brocade covering the tray and saw a transparent porcelain on the tray. Inside the porcelain was a dark green toad. The jade cold toad, it's that thing. Many people were shocked, and the entire auction house was in an uproar. Many pairs of fiery eyes looked at the jasper cold toad. Croak, croak, croak. The jade cold toad croaked. It wanted to jump out of the porcelain, but it was sealed in it. Sir, what's that jade cold toad? Why are so many people so excited? Asked Zi Yuan. Said Lin Feng. The jade ice toad is a strange beast. It's extremely rare. It's said that the jade ice toad can cure hundreds of poisons. No matter what kind of poison you have, the jade ice toad can cure it. Besides, it's said that the jade ice toad can also help you practice cultivation. If you practice ice skills with the help of the jade ice toad, your cultivation speed will increase by 12 times. At that moment, the auctioneer, Song Yen'er, said, the starting price of the jade cold toad is 5 million spiritual stones. Each increment must be at least 500,000 spiritual stones. Lin Feng was astonished. The starting price of the jade cold toad was really high. Normally, if the starting price was so high, the final price would rise to an unimaginable level. Let's begin, said Song Yen'er. 6 million, 7 million, 8 million, 30 million, 100 million, 300 million, 1 billion, 1,500 million, 3 billion. Many people joined in the bidding. Lin Feng was astonished. The price had reached 3 billion, but it didn't stop. It was obvious that the price was going to continue rising. However, after thinking about it, it seemed to be normal. The first item of the auction was called Good Start. Although it wasn't the most expensive item among all the auction items, it could usually be ranked in the top 5. Moreover, the jasper icy toad was indeed a rare beast. Although the price was ridiculously high, to those top forces, they didn't lack spiritual stones. In the end, the jade cold toad was sold for 4,500 million spiritual stones. It was a sky-high price. With so many spiritual stones, even an ancient force could operate normally for 10 years. After the jade cold toad, the other precious items were taken out for auction. Lin Feng didn't participate in the bidding. He was waiting for the blood spirit ghost face vine. The next item to be auctioned is an interspatial ring refined by a creation realm weapon refiner. This interspatial ring is about the size of 10,000 mu of land. Gu Tianma waved his hand, and a servant girl came up with a tray. Song Yen'er opened the cloth and saw the silver-white ring on the tray. 10,000 mu? He made such a big spatial ring. Many people were moved. Ordinary spatial rings were a few square meters. The bigger ones were dozens or hundreds of square meters. It was rare to see a spatial ring with 1,000 square meters. But the one in front of them was 10,000 mu. It was too big. Many people were moved. Of course, there were many people who didn't care. After all, there were only a few things to store. It didn't seem to be necessary to make such a big spatial ring. The starting price of this spatial ring is 1 million spiritual stones. Each bid can't be less than 100,000 spiritual stones. Let's start the bidding. Song Yen'er smiled. Many people participated in the bidding. In the end, The spatial ring was bought by Lin Feng for 230 million spiritual stones. Not long after, the blood spirit ghost face vine was also taken out for auction. But the price wasn't too high. Lin Feng bought the precious blood spirit ghost face vine for 5 million spiritual stones. After buying these two items, Lin Feng planned to leave. He paid the spiritual stones and put away the items. When the auction was in full swing, Lin Feng and Zi Yuan left the auction and returned to their residence. Lin Feng had already prepared the rest of the spiritual herbs to make the immemorial blood demon pill. Now that Lin Feng had bought the main ingredient, the blood spirit ghost face vine, Lin Feng planned to make the immemorial blood demon pill. Lin Feng took out the medicine cauldron and took a deep breath. This time, the fire Qilin wasn't by his side, so he had to rely on himself. The immemorial blood demon pill was a mid-level, low-level mystic class pill. It was Lin Feng's first time making such a high-level pill. He was very nervous about whether he could succeed. Chapter 462. Huff, huff. Lin Feng adjusted his breathing. He was a confident person. So what if the fire Qilin was not by his side? It was not his first time refining medicine. The only difference between a yellow-tier pill and a dark-tier pill was their grade. They were both pills. Lin Feng comforted himself. Moreover, Lin Feng felt that his soul energy had reached the soul level of a dark-tier alchemist. Therefore, he had enough reason to believe that he could succeed in refining. Whoosh! Lin Feng flicked his finger, and the purple earthcore fire jumped out. It curled around Lin Feng's fingertips and danced happily. Lin Feng flicked the purple earthcore fire into the cauldron. Stalks of spirit herbs were thrown into the cauldron by Lin Feng and began to be refined and purified. Refining medicine was a very meticulous job. Other than the heavenly fire, strong soul perception, and control of spirit herbs, an alchemist must have another important factor. That was character. Some people, no matter how talented they were careless. They did things carelessly and did not care about the consequences. Such people, even if they had the strongest talent in refining medicine, would find it difficult to become a powerful alchemist. Meticulousness. This was a quality that an alchemist must pay attention to. Other than meticulousness, an alchemist also needed other characteristics such as patience, strong perseverance, and so on. Therefore, this was why it was so difficult to become an alchemist. Those who had talent were already as rare as phoenix feathers and unicorn horns. Among those who had talent, they also needed to have various outstanding qualities. This would eliminate a portion of them. Therefore, this was one of the main reasons why alchemists were so rare. However, Lin Feng had always been a meticulous person. Especially when Lin Feng was focused on something, such as refining medicine or drawing spirit arrays, he would put his heart and soul into it and work hard to achieve the limit of what he could do. In the blink of an eye, 3 days had passed. Buzz. In the room, there was a shocking fluctuation. Creak. The door opened, and Lin Feng walked out with a tired look on his face. During these 3 days, Zi Yuan had been waiting very anxiously, afraid that something would happen while Lin Feng was refining medicine. Now that she saw Lin Feng come out, she was finally relieved. "Sir, you must be tired. You must be hungry. I'll get someone to prepare some food." Looking at the exhausted Lin Feng, Zi Yuan said with heartache. Lin Feng smiled and said, "There's no rush. Zi Yuan, go in and consume this pill. Then refine it." As he spoke, Lin Feng passed the porcelain bottle containing the ancient blood demon pill to Zi Yuan. "This pill was concocted for me." Zi Yuan's expression was full of surprise. Lin Feng smiled and said, "Hurry up and take it. It's just been refined, so its medicinal power is at its best right now. I hope it'll be useful to you. Even if you can't become a cultivation genius after refining this pill, I estimate that it'll greatly increase your cultivation speed. Zi Yuan's hand trembled slightly as she held the bottle. She had always wanted to have a powerful cultivation talent, but she had never had such a talent. Zi Yuan had always been very anxious, and she even hated herself for being a burden to her master. So her master knew what she was thinking, and he had always kept it in mind. Zi Yuan's eyes became moist. Lin Feng rubbed Zi Yuan's head and said, "Good luck. I believe that Zi Yuan will become a powerful cultivator in the future." "Yes, I will." Zi Yuan nodded. Zi Yuan nodded solemnly. Then she took the porcelain bottle with the ancient blood demon pill as if she was carrying a holy object and entered the room inside. Lin Feng muttered, "I hope that Zi Yuan's snake demon bloodline can be stronger. If it's too weak, then the ancient blood demon pill won't be of any use. Zi Yuan will definitely suffer a heavy blow." Lin Feng suppressed the worry in his heart and sat on the steps outside, leaning against the door frame and resting with his eyes closed. After refining pills for 3 days without rest, Lin Feng was truly exhausted. "Zi Yuan must become stronger. I don't want to be a burden to master anymore." Zi Yuan bit her lip and opened the bottle. She poured out a blood-red pill and swallowed it. Boom! The ancient blood demon pill's medicinal power began to produce a shocking effect. Waves of fiery energy spread out from Zi Yuan's body. Pain. Zi Yuan felt an unprecedented pain. It was as if her soul was being burned by hellfire. It was a pain that reached deep into her soul. Zi Yuan bit her lip even though she was about to die from the pain. However, she still tried her best not to make a sound. Zi Yuan was afraid that her master would worry about her. Zi Yuan bit her lip so hard that blood flowed into her mouth. She could taste the thick taste of blood spreading in her mouth. Her nails dug into her flesh as her body curled up on the bed, twitching violently. The ancient blood demon pill's medicinal power was too overbearing. Even Lin Feng didn't think of this. Zi Yuan felt her consciousness slowly becoming blurry. "Am I going to die? I don't want to die. I really don't want to die. I don't want to leave, Master." Zi Yuan was unwilling. She wanted to live. However, she felt as if her body was about to be ignited. Waves of fire even spewed out of Zi Yuan's body, wanting to burn her to ashes. If it was in the past, this would be a form of relief. But now, Zi Yuan really wanted to live. She loved the feeling of being cared for by her master. She loved the feeling of being by his side. However, Zi Yuan's consciousness was becoming blurry. In the end, Zi Yuanyuan fainted. The immemorial blood demon pill's alchemic fire was terrifying. It wanted to devour Zi Yuanyuan completely and turn her into ashes. But at that moment, Zi Yuanyuan's eyes turned dark green. At the same time, Zi Yuanyuan's blood began to transform. Her originally dark red blood began to turn golden. Boom! At the same time, in the sky above northern Wasteland City, endless thunderclouds covered the sky. This sudden change alarmed countless people. Countless people rushed out and looked at the sky in shock. They didn't know what was going to happen. "Look, what's that?" Someone pointed at the sky in horror. Everyone looked over and discovered that within the thunderclouds, an enormous golden snake of unknown length had appeared. A single scale of the golden snake seemed to be larger than the entire northern Wasteland City. An ancient and vicissitude aura surged out of the golden snake's body. Feeling the aura of the golden snake, countless people knelt on the ground and worshipped the golden snake as if they were kneeling to a god. The Holy Emperor's phantom. Some almighty cultivators looked at the golden snake in disbelief. Why would the Holy Emperor's phantom appear in the sky above Northern Wasteland City? Bloodline awakening. In a courtyard, a beautiful woman walked out of her room. When she saw the golden snake in the sky, her charming eyes were filled with shock. Swish. Chapter 463. Lin Feng sensed that two people were looking at him in an ice-cold way. He opened his eyes and saw a beautiful woman in the courtyard. That woman was extremely beautiful, no matter if it was her body or her face. But when Lin Feng saw that woman, he only felt ice-cold. It was a bone-piercing coldness. Lin Feng knew that this woman was definitely a terrifying existence. At that moment, Lin Feng saw the huge golden snake in the sky. He was shocked. Was it because Zi Yuan had consumed the ancient blood demon pill? This beautiful woman had come here because of the giant golden snake. If Zi Yuan had really lured the snake here, then it was too terrifying. It meant that Zi Yuan's bloodline was extremely powerful, but the woman in front of him was so cold that Lin Feng felt like he had fallen into a bottomless abyss. She was too terrifying, and she didn't seem to have good intentions. "Senior, may I know who you are?" asked Lin Feng carefully. "Who's inside?" asked the woman instead of answering Lin Feng. "She's my cousin," said Lin Feng. "Cousin?" The woman frowned slightly, but she didn't say anything. She just walked into the room. Lin Feng stopped her and said, "Senior, you can't go in. My cousin has some problems with her cultivation, and she's recovering. Please don't disturb her." The woman looked at Lin Feng coldly and said, "She's already awake, and she's doing well." Lin Feng saw that he couldn't hide anything from the woman, so he smiled awkwardly and entered the room first. As expected, Zi Yuan had already woken up, but she still looked a little weak. "Cousin, how are you?" Lin Feng quickly walked over and gave Zi Yuan a meaningful glance. Zi Yuan was very smart, and she understood what Lin Feng meant. She said, "Thank you, cousin. I'm fine. Who's this beautiful big sister?" The woman who had been looking at Lin Feng coldly smiled at Zi Yuan and said, "Young lady, my name is Lan Rua. I'm not your big sister anymore. You can call me Aunt Lan Rua. Can I examine your body carefully?" Zi Yuan looked at Lin Feng. Lan Rua also looked at Lin Feng, but there was a threatening look in her eyes. Lin Feng smiled bitterly and said, "My cousin's body has just recovered. It's our honor to be examined by Senior." The woman nodded in satisfaction. She initially looked at Zi Yuan coldly, but now she was smiling. Lin Feng couldn't help but sigh. That woman changed her mind faster than flipping a book. The woman smiled and said, "Don't worry, she'll recover." Zi Yuan nodded. The woman placed her right hand on Zi Yuan's abdomen, and it immediately shone with golden light. "Ah, what's wrong with me?" Zi Yuan cried out in alarm. The woman was pleasantly surprised. She really did awaken the most ancient sacred ancestor blood race. What a pleasant surprise. I never thought I'd encounter such a fortuitous encounter in northern desolate city. Judging from the woman's tone, Zi Yuan had awakened a very powerful bloodline. Lin Feng was about to ask her about it when the woman said, "Come with me quickly." When this girl awakened her bloodline, she alarmed many people. "We have to leave quickly. Otherwise, it'll be very troublesome if other people find this place." Lin Feng's expression changed slightly. If even the woman found this troublesome, it naturally wasn't something he and Zi Yuan could deal with. Lin Feng had seen a huge golden snake in the sky. That was the result of Zi Yuan's bloodline awakening, and it was indeed too shocking. It had attracted many experts, but Lin Feng didn't suspect anything. Even though Lin Feng didn't want to have too much contact with the woman, it seemed that he could only leave with her and then think of a way to escape. The three of them quickly left. Not long after, several figures flew towards the inn where Lin Feng was staying, but Lin Feng and the others had already left. Lin Feng and Zi Yuan followed the woman to a mansion in the northwest part of northern Desolate City. "Someone's following us." The woman frowned and glanced into the distance. Lin Feng looked over and saw a middle-aged cultivator looking at him with a ferocious smile. He could also sense some gloomy qi coming from all directions. There were cultivators hiding in the dark, and it was obvious that they were targeting him. The woman could obviously tell that the qi was targeting Lin Feng, so she looked at Lin Feng meaningfully before entering the courtyard. "Cousin, brother, who are those people?" asked Zi Yuan worriedly. "I'm afraid they're from the Fog City," whispered Lin Feng. "They're chasing us." Zi Yuan's face paled slightly. Lin Feng nodded gravely and said, "Let's go in and see what they're up to." Zi Yuan nodded and entered the courtyard with Lin Feng. "Master, you're back. Who are these two people?" asked a group of more than 10 people. "There's no time to talk. Let's leave northern Desolate City," said the woman. As the beautiful woman spoke, she took out a palm-sized boat. This ship was different from ordinary ships. Ordinary ships would enter the water. For example, Taoist priest Xian Cheng's ship could pass through the magnetic fog lake. The ship that the woman had taken out was obviously much larger. It was a flying ship. She poured her magic power into the ship, and it quickly flew into the air. It grew to 20 meters long and 8 or 9 meters tall, and it emitted powerful energy waves. Lin Feng clicked his tongue in amazement when he saw the ship. It was really a treasure. Only the best equipment forgers could make such a ship. "Let's get on the ship. We'll talk on the way." The woman looked at Lin Feng. Lin Feng nodded. The people of the Fog City were watching them, and Zi Yuan's bloodline had awakened. They had to leave northern Desolate City as soon as possible. Leaving with the woman's ship wasn't a bad choice. The group boarded the ship. Whoosh! The ship soared into the sky and flew away. Chase! The men of sacrifice from the Hellion clan, who had been hiding in the surroundings, chased after them. "The men of sacrifice from the Hellion clan are here as well." "Interesting," said Nalen Hong indifferently. He quickly disappeared from the street. The ship was very luxurious. The woman called Lin Feng and Zi Yuan to a room. She smiled at Zi Yuan and said, "Little girl, what's your name?" "My name is Zi Yuan. This is my cousin, Lin Feng." Zi Yuan was very smart, and she smiled. "Where is your family?" asked Zi Yuan. Said Lin Feng, "Something happened in my family. Now, only my cousin and I are left. We depend on each other." When she heard that Lin Feng and Zi Yuan had no family, the woman was delighted. She looked at Zi Yuan happily, but when she looked at Lin Feng, her eyes were filled with killing intent. However, she hid it too well, and Lin Feng didn't notice it. Chapter 464. Zi Yuan had awakened the sacred ancestor's bloodline, which was unimaginably powerful. In the future, she would definitely become a peerless expert. Therefore, the beautiful woman had the intention of taking Zi Yuan into her sect. The world is difficult. You two depend on each other for survival. What do you plan to do? Lin Feng replied, "I plan to seek protection from a large sect. Our Heavenly Tao Ancient Holy Land is the #1 power in the Heavenly Tao Prefecture. We have a long history, and we have the most ancient inheritance. Why don't the two of you join us?" Lin Feng hadn't expected such a good thing. An ancient holy land had actually sent him an invitation. A power like the Heavenly Tao Ancient Holy Land was definitely one of the strongest powers in the 3,000 provinces. Lin Feng had deliberately concealed his aura, so he looked very ordinary. Thus, Lin Feng knew that the woman had only invited him and Zi Yuan to join the heavenly Tao ancient holy land because of Zi Yuan's talent. With Zi Yuan's talent, you'll definitely be able to become a core disciple very quickly after joining us. At that time, we'll also be able to find you an outer disciple. What do you think? The woman looked at Lin Feng. She could tell that Lin Feng was around 19 years old, but he was still only a general. In addition, Lin Feng had deliberately concealed his bloodline power. Thus, she felt that Lin Feng's talent was only average. Lin Feng said, "Thank you. I'll leave everything to you, senior." "All right, very good. The heavenly Tao ancient holy land won't mistreat you." The woman said, "Ziyu, Lin Feng will sleep in the same room as you." "Zi Yuan, why don't you sleep in the same room as me?" The woman smiled at Zi Yuan. Zi Yuan didn't want to be separated from Lin Feng, but when she thought about how they were cousins, she felt that it was best to avoid arousing suspicion. She nodded and said, "I'm afraid that I'll disturb Senior's dreams." The woman smiled. "How could that be? I'm more than happy to have you by my side. In the future, you'll also become a disciple of the heavenly Tao ancient holy land. You can call me Marshal, Aunt, like everyone else." Zi Yuan nodded obediently. The young cultivator called, "Zi, you took Lin Feng to a room and smiled." "Brother Lin, you can sleep on this bed," said Ziyu, smiling. This person's full name was Wang Ziyu. He was 20 years old and was a fifth firmament martial king. He was only 1 year older than Lin Feng. He was quite talented and was an inner disciple of the heavenly Tao ancient holy land. Asked Lin Feng, "How long will it take to get to the celestial Tao ancient holy land?" Asked Lin Feng. "We need to cross 3 provinces. Even if we take a flying ship, we won't be able to get there in 10 years. We need to go to Rain City now. It's one of the 10 great ancient capitals of desolate territory. It rains heavily all year round. That's why it's called Rain City. There's a space-time wormhole in Rain City. It'll take us 3 months to get to the celestial Tao ancient holy land." Wang Ziyu said, "Space-time wormhole? What is that?" Asked Lin Feng. "It's a space-time wormhole. It's a kind of tunnel, but it's not an ordinary tunnel. It's a wormhole. It's a tunnel that can cross an endless distance. It's said that the gods created it. When you enter a wormhole, you can jump through the void and greatly reduce the time it takes to travel between 2 places. But nowadays, there aren't many wormholes. Usually, there's only 1 wormhole in a region. Sometimes there are 2, 3, and some regions don't even have a wormhole." Lin Feng nodded. "I see." Lin Feng nodded. It was just like how the Eastern Province didn't have any space-time wormholes. "Zi Yuan, why aren't you asleep?" asked the beautiful woman when she saw Zi Yuan tossing and turning. "I don't know if my cousin is asleep or not. Uncle, I'm going to go see him. I'll be back soon." Zi Yuan stood up and walked out of her room. She walked towards Lin Feng and Wang Ziyu's room. In the darkness, the beautiful woman's eyes flashed coldly. "He has the divine ancestor's bloodline. How can such a genius have any connections in this world?" The beautiful woman got up and walked to the window. When she saw the figure that was far behind the spaceship, a cold smile appeared on her face. The next day, the beautiful woman called Wang Ziyu and said, "Keep an eye on Lin Feng." Wang Ziyu's heart shuddered. A few years ago, something similar happened. Her beautiful martial aunt had found a very talented girl. That girl had a fiancé who was her childhood sweetheart. The condition for joining the heavenly Tao ancient holy land was to join the heavenly Tao ancient holy land with her childhood sweetheart and fiancé. The woman had agreed, but on the way there, the young man had suddenly died. At that moment, Wang Ziyu had already guessed who the culprit was. At that moment, her teacher was telling her to keep an eye on Lin Feng. Besides, her eyes were filled with killing intent which made Wang Ziyu think of many things. But Wang Ziyu was only an insignificant elite disciple. She didn't dare disobey her teacher's orders. Disciple will remember. All right, you can go. The woman waved her hand. Over the next 3 days, Lin Feng noticed that Wang Ziyu was acting strangely. Originally, he and Wang Ziyu had been chatting happily, but during these 3 days, Wang Ziyu had barely spoken to him. It seemed like she had something to say to him, but she was hesitant. On the 3rd night, Wang Ziyu said to Lin Feng, "Brother Lin, hurry up and leave the ship. Don't waste any more time. If you waste any more time, you might die." "What do you mean?" Lin Feng was puzzled. "Don't ask so many questions. Come with me." Wang Ziyu brought Lin Feng to the outside of the ship. He said, "Hit me, then I'll open the ship's restrictive spells and let you leave. If you're too late, I'm afraid." "Traitor!" A cold voice rang out. The beautiful woman silently appeared and slapped Wang Ziyu with her palm, sending her flying. Wah! Wang Ziyu coughed up blood and crashed into the restrictive spells. She fell to the ground, twitched violently, and stopped moving. Nobody knew whether she was dead or alive. How could you be so cruel? When Lin Feng saw Wang Ziyu's fate, he pulled a long face. At that moment, he had already guessed what had happened. The beautiful woman had probably wanted to kill him. Wang Ziyu had heard the news and wanted to let him go. At that moment, she had been killed. When Lin Feng saw that Wang Ziyu had wanted to let him go, his heart was filled with killing intent. "You betrayed me, and you're courting death. Those people behind you are chasing you, right? You're really persistent. Piss off." The beautiful woman smiled coldly and waved her sleeves. A powerful force wrapped around Lin Feng and threw him out of the ship. The ship turned into a beam of light and flew off into the distance, disappearing in the blink of an eye. Chapter 4, 65. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. A dozen people in black clothes were rushing towards Lin Feng while releasing an ice-cold chi. Lin Feng was surrounded. "Ruolan, you bitch." Lin Feng gnashed his teeth. He hated Ruolan to the core. He knew that some people had been chasing him and Ziyuan. How could Ruolan not know? She had driven him off the airship because she wanted to kill him with a borrowed knife. "Little boy, why are you being driven off?" asked the leader of the group. He was a cultivator of the 10th celestial layer. His cultivation level was terrifying. He alone could pose a threat to Lin Feng. Besides, he had many helpers. Lin Feng knew that he was in danger. If he wasn't careful, he could die. "Who are you? Are you from the Nailin clan, or are you from the Hellion clan?" Lin Feng looked at those people in black coldly. "Since you're going to die, we'll let you know why. We're from the Hellion clan. We've received orders to kill you. Even if we have to chase you to the ends of the earth, we'll take your life." The leader of the black-clothed men said coldly, "So you're from the Hellion clan. No wonder you're chasing me. But we don't know who will win," said Lin Feng with a cold smile. He immediately attacked. The situation wasn't good. Lin Feng needed to break out of the encirclement. The enemy had a cultivator of the 10th celestial layer. Besides, apart from that cultivator, there were 2 cultivators of the 7th celestial layer, 5 cultivators of the 5th celestial layer, and 7 cultivators of the 4th celestial layer. There were too many high-level cultivators. If Lin Feng fought against them, he would be courting death. Boom, dense thunderbolts intertwined and moved towards the cultivators of the 4th celestial layer. They were the weakest, so it was the easiest place to break out of the encirclement. As for the other places, the cultivators of the Hellion clan were too strong. Breaking out of the encirclement was as difficult as climbing to the heavens. "Brat, you're courting death." Seeing that Lin Feng actually still dared to make the first move, these death warriors were immediately enraged. the leader of the Death Warriors shouted. Although this little boy's cultivation level isn't high, he probably has some powerful magical treasures. Don't underestimate him. The main reason was that Nailan Kong, Helian Zhe, and the others who had chased after Lin Feng had all died. At that time, there were 6 martial king experts following them, although the cultivation of those 6 martial kings was not particularly high. But what about Lin Feng? He was only a martial general cultivator. The leader of the men of sacrifice would not believe that a martial general realm cultivator could kill 6 martial king realm cultivators with his own strength. He was more willing to believe that it was because Lin Feng had a powerful magic treasure on him that he was able to kill the 6 experts. Now, the leader of the Death Warriors was even thinking that after killing Lin Feng, he would take all of Lin Feng's powerful magic weapons for himself. Anyway, the patriarch didn't know that Lin Feng had such a magic weapon. Yes, Your Excellency, those people of sacrifice were extremely careful. They all moved towards Lin Feng at the same time. There were people all around him, but Lin Feng did not dodge. Seeing this scene, the men of sacrifice had a sinister expression on their faces. Is this brat courting death? He's not dodging? In their opinion, Lin Feng was simply courting death. How could he survive after receiving so many attacks? Brat, die. A few powerful death warriors had hideous smiles on their faces. They had already charged towards Lin Feng. Roar! At that critical moment, the 2-headed Xiong Qi rushed out and protected Lin Feng's body. It waved its huge claws and attacked the Death Warriors. Lin Feng was relying on the 2-headed Xiong Qi's strength. He wanted to use the 2-headed Xiong Qi to catch them off guard and block the attacks from the 2 Death Warriors to buy himself some time. It's an avatar. The Death Warriors were shocked. However, their attacks were powerful enough to send the 2-headed Xiong Qi flying. However, the 2-headed Xiong Qi had already won Lin Feng precious time. Lin Feng used the Sky Tyrant lightning incantation to form a lightning attack and collided with the 4th Firmament Martial King experts. They had the advantage in numbers. However, their cultivation was limited. Bang! Along with the sound of the violent collision, there was a loud bang. Several cultivators in the 4th heaven of the Martial King realm were sent flying. Lin Feng's eyes lit up. He quickly rushed out of the encirclement. However, at that moment, a cold aura swept over from behind. Lin Feng was shocked. He wanted to dodge, but it was too late. He saw a crescent-shaped magic treasure appear in the void. It spun violently and slashed at Lin Feng's back. Puff! The power of the magic treasure was too strong. Lin Feng's body could not withstand the terrifying sharpness. A deep wound was torn open, and blood immediately gushed out. If Lin Feng's body was not strong enough, this attack would have cut Lin Feng into 2. Swoosh! Lin Feng's body fell into the forest below. Ha! Sir's full moon swordsmanship is really powerful. That kid is not simple, but he still can't withstand the power of Sir's swordsmanship. Seeing Lin Feng fall, the Death Warriors complimented him. They did not believe that Lin Feng could survive. My treasured saber is made of frost black iron. It belongs to the extreme Yin attribute. When combined with my full moon swordsmanship, its power is naturally endless. All right, go and collect that kid's body. The leader of the Death Warriors said. Yes, sir. 2 men of sacrifice immediately plunged into the forest below. Puff! Lin Feng, who was falling rapidly in midair, spat out a mouthful of blood. He felt that there was a terrifying saber chi in his body that was destroying his vitality. Although the injury on his back was serious, it was not fatal. The most terrifying and fatal injury was the saber chi that entered his body. The 2 Death Warriors who went to collect Lin Feng's body were very fast. They reached out to grab the falling Lin Feng. However, Lin Feng, who was supposed to be dead, suddenly moved. Fast as lightning. A shrill scream was heard. Lin Feng took advantage of the fact that the two death warriors were not prepared to use the Sword of Souls. Then he used his palm as a saber and instantly chopped off the heads of the two death warriors. Then Lin Feng quickly rushed into the depths of the forest. He knew that he had to find a place to suppress his injuries quickly. Otherwise, only death awaited them. Oh no, something happened. When the leader of the men of sacrifice heard the screams coming from below, his face suddenly changed. He shouted and rushed down. The rest of the death warriors also rushed into the forest. However, there was no sign of Lin Feng in the forest. There were only two decapitated death warriors. This kid is seriously injured. His life is in danger. He can't run away. Go after him. The leader of the death warriors shouted with a gloomy face. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. More than 10 death warriors scattered in all directions, quickly searching for Lin Feng's whereabouts. Chapter 466. Pooh! The saber chi in his body wreaked havoc. Lin Feng couldn't help but spit out a mouthful of blood. His face became even paler. What a powerful saber technique. It actually injured me to this extent. Lin Feng gritted his teeth. He had never suffered such a serious injury before. The blow that he had just received was in a situation where he was completely defenseless. It was precisely because of this that the damage was even more terrifying. Lin Feng felt that the saber chi in his body was going to destroy all of his vitality. It was so violent that it was wreaking havoc in his body. However, he didn't have the time to suppress it at all. Lin Feng knew that in his current state, even a martial master cultivator might be able to kill him. Tired, Lin Feng felt an unprecedented fatigue. Whoosh! Finally, Lin Feng couldn't hold on any longer. His body quickly fell into the forest below. Even the pair of energy wings formed by the golden body's wings had dissipated. Lin Feng slowly closed his eyes. He really wanted to close his eyes completely and never wake up, because he was really too tired. Plop! But soon, a bone-piercing chill swept through his body. Lin Feng's already dispirited aura recovered a lot. Lin Feng fell into a torrential river and was swept far away. Lin Feng's spirit recovered a lot after being stimulated by the cold river water. Although he was still very weak, he could at least use some strength. He hugged a piece of wood and floated downstream. The saber chi in his body was still wreaking havoc on Lin Feng's body. Lin Feng spat out mouthfuls of blood from time to time. Suddenly, Lin Feng saw a protruding platform at the bottom of the cliff. Even though it wasn't very big, it was very secluded and could hide people. Lin Feng used all his strength to swim towards the protruding platform. Finally, Lin Feng climbed up the rock. Pooh! The saber chi in his body pierced through Lin Feng's body. Lin Feng spat out 3 mouthfuls of blood. His face was extremely pale. He tried his best to sit up and leaned against the rock wall. He didn't dare to delay and hurriedly circulated the archaic dragonesque elephant art. When he circulated the archaic dragonesque elephant art, it pulled at the wounds on his body. His back was burning with pain, and the blood didn't stop flowing. Lin Feng spat out another mouthful of blood. He felt drowsy and couldn't keep his eyes open. Pooh! Lin Feng was very straightforward. He took out a dagger and stabbed it into his thigh. Blood immediately spurted out. After receiving such a huge blow, his spirit, a lot. Lin Feng knew that he definitely couldn't close his eyes. As long as he closed his eyes, then what awaited him would be death. So he didn't hesitate to provoke himself. Lin Feng started using the ancient Dracophant formula. The strength of the ancient Dracophant formula started healing Lin Feng's injuries. But at that moment, a dazzling blade light continued to penetrate into Lin Feng's body. It wanted to tear his body apart. It was a fatal blow. Demonic blood saber. Demonic blood saber. A series of low and deep sounds came from the blade light. Saber spirit, Lin Feng was shocked. The so-called spirit was a kind of existence with a simple consciousness, spiritual consciousness, like the weapon spirit of a magic treasure. The saber chi in Lin Feng's body had a spirit. It wasn't a magic treasure. It was just the saber chi of a saber technique. But it gave birth to his spirit. This was extremely terrifying. Normally, only experts in the yin-yang realm could give their attacks a spirit. Of course, some martial king experts who were about to enter the yin-yang realm might be able to understand the method of giving their attacks a spirit in advance by chance. The leader of the men of sacrifice wasn't in the yin-yang realm. He was in the martial king 10th heaven peak. But he comprehended the saber spirit. This meant that he was about to break through the yin-yang realm. What was so terrifying about the spirit? First, if one could give their attacks a spirit, then their attacks would be several times stronger. For example, if two cultivators in the yin-yang realm at the first heaven had comprehended the spirit and the other didn't, then, when the two of them fought, the cultivator who comprehended the spirit could even kill the cultivator who didn't. Although they had the same cultivation, there was such a big gap. This was the terror of the spirit. Secondly, the spirit was a kind of consciousness given by the user. The spirit would only obey the user's consciousness and act according to the user's consciousness. For example, the saber chi that entered Lin Feng's body contained a saber spirit. The consciousness of the saber spirit was to destroy Lin Feng's body and kill Lin Feng. If it was an ordinary saber chi that pierced through Lin Feng's body, it would have disappeared. However, the leader of the men of sacrifice's attack contained a spirit. Therefore, not only did his attack not disappear, but it also entered Lin Feng's body and began to destroy Lin Feng's body. This was the terror of the spirit. Finally, some terrifying spirits were said to be able to take over someone's body and be reborn. Of course, the leader of the men of sacrifice couldn't do that. Even so, the leader of the men of sacrifice's saber had almost killed Lin Feng. If Lin Feng hadn't fallen into the icy river and recovered his mental strength, he might have died under the attack of the saber chi. Lin Feng used the archaic dragonesque elephant skill and summoned the shadow of the archaic dragonesque elephant to suppress the saber chi in his body. The baleful blood saber is invincible. The baleful blood saber is invincible. The saber spirit's cold voice continued to wreak havoc in Lin Feng's body. It wanted to destroy Lin Feng's body further. However, the shadow of the archaic dragonesque elephant was too powerful. It stomped down and crushed the saber spirit. Such a powerful saber spirit should be mine. Lin Feng took a deep breath. He activated his devouring martial spirit. BZZZ. The devouring martial spirit immediately enveloped the saber chi that contained the saber spirit. Lin Feng wanted to forcibly refine the saber chi that contained the saber spirit. Lin Feng knew how terrifying that attack was. It was the leader of the men of sacrifice's full strength. The leader of the men of sacrifice hadn't broken through to the yin-yang layer yet. It was already impressive that he could use such a powerful attack in battle. If Lin Feng could refine the saber spirit, he would have a terrifying attack. The baleful blood saber, the baleful blood saber. The saber spirit was struggling and roaring furiously. However, its struggling and roaring gradually weakened under the suppression of Lin Feng's devouring martial spirit. The saber spirit's chi was gradually mixed with Lin Feng's chi. So you're hiding here. In the distance, a silhouette flew over. It was a man of sacrifice wearing black clothes who had the strength of the fourth celestial layer. When he sensed the chaotic qi in Lin Feng's body, he was overjoyed. He knew that Lin Feng was about to die. The man of sacrifice didn't inform the others. Instead, he rushed towards Lin Feng because he knew that Lin Feng might have a precious treasure on him. The man of sacrifice wanted to kill Lin Feng quietly and take the treasure for himself. Chapter 467. The smile on the fourth-level Martial King, Realm Man of Sacrifice's face grew colder and colder, and his killing intent grew stronger. In his opinion, Lin Feng, who was seriously injured, would not be able to escape death. He seemed to see himself killing Lin Feng and obtaining Lin Feng's magic treasure. Then he would take Lin Feng's magic treasure as his own, and his cultivation would increase greatly. But at this moment, Lin Feng suddenly opened his eyes. The man of sacrifice grinned. "So what if you've woken up? It's too late to hide now." Boom. But in the next moment, a terrifying aura enveloped his entire body. The fourth-level Martial King Realm Expert's face suddenly revealed a look of horror because he found that his body was imprisoned in midair, unable to move. At this critical moment, Lin Feng summoned his devouring martial spirit, 5 devouring martial spirits, as one. The powerful magnetic field formed immediately imprisoned the cultivator. Die. Lin Feng looked indifferent. He used his palm as a saber and slashed out directly. Puff. The fourth-level Martial King, Realm Expert's neck was suddenly torn apart, and blood spurted out. Then his body fell into the water and was swept away by the waves. Puff. Lin Feng spat out a mouthful of blood. He had just suppressed the saber qi in his body, and his injuries had not recovered. At this moment, he used his 5 devouring martial spirits to fight against the enemy and injured himself again. "I can't stay here for long. These men of sacrifice will come after me." Lin Feng swallowed a few healing pills, and his qi and blood recovered a little. This was not a place to stay for long. Even if he wanted to heal, he had to find a hidden place. Lin Feng looked into the depths of the dense forest. He vaguely felt a few terrifying auras entrenched in the depths. There should be very powerful, fierce beasts entrenched in the depths. Perhaps he could hide there and heal his injuries as soon as possible. Whoosh! Lin Feng flew into the depths of the forest. Not long after, he was attacked. Buzz, a flying sword as fast as lightning shot towards Lin Feng. This was a death warrior in black. He was hiding on top of a big tree and launched a sneak attack on Lin Feng. The flying sword emitted a cold light, emitting an aura that caused Lin Feng's heart to palpitate. However, Lin Feng's reaction speed was extremely fast. He quickly dodged the flying sword's attack and then rushed towards the other party. Whoosh! Lin Feng instantly rushed in front of the Martial King, Realm Man of Sacrifice. He was also a man of sacrifice at the 4th heaven of the Martial King realm. The kamikaze warrior originally thought that he could kill Lin Feng with one strike, but he didn't expect Lin Feng to dodge the attack. Moreover, Lin Feng instantly arrived in front of him. His expression changed dramatically. He wanted to retreat quickly, but it was too late. Lin Feng had already launched a punch with the Sky Tyrant Thunder Art. Boom! A terrifying aura burst out, and dense lightning energy enveloped the Death Warrior. Bolts of lightning struck the Death Warrior's body mercilessly. Poof! The Death Warrior's body was instantly torn to pieces. Blood dripped, and he died on the spot. Lin Feng took away the Death Warrior's flying sword and storage ring. Then he released a flame and burned the Death Warrior's body to ashes. Then he quickly left. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Not long after, 4 figures rushed over. They were 4 Death Warriors. 2 of them were 5th Heaven Marshal King Realm cultivators, while the other 2 were 4th Heaven Marshal King Realm cultivators. Look, there's ashes. Our people must have been killed. One of the Death Warriors said with a gloomy expression. They must have gone deeper. Chase them. As soon as the voice fell, the 4 Death Warriors quickly chased into the depths of the forest. Cough, cough, cough. Lin Feng kept coughing, and his face was very pale. His injuries hadn't healed, and the continuous battles had worsened them. It was difficult for him to increase his speed, but Lin Feng's perception was still very strong. Not long after, he felt 4 cold auras chasing after him. Lin Feng took a deep breath, and his body silently disappeared. Soon, the 4 Death Warriors rushed over. They lost all their auras. They must be hiding in the surroundings. A 5th Heaven Marshal King, Realm Death Warrior, said in a deep voice. Split up and search. Another cultivator at the 5th Heaven of the Marshal King Realm said coldly. The 4 Death Warriors spread out and began to search. Not long after, a shrill scream was heard, alarming the other 3. The 3 Death Warriors quickly rushed over and found that one of their companions' chest had been pierced by a sword. That kid knows how to hide. Use the wind and force him out. A 5th Heaven Marshal King, Realm Death Warrior, said with a gloomy expression. Boom. Then, the 3 of them used the wind. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. The fierce wind swept over and destroyed a large area of the forest. Lin Feng was forced out. Kid, you're dead. When the 3 Death Warriors saw Lin Feng, their faces were full of murderous intent. They quickly rushed towards Lin Feng. Roar, roar. A deep roar was heard, and the 2-headed Qiong-Qi appeared. Under Lin Feng's control, the 2-headed Qiong-Qi rushed towards the 2 5th Heaven Marshal King Realm cultivators. Lin Feng rushed towards the 4th Heaven Marshal King Realm cultivator. If he got rid of the 4th Heaven Marshal King Realm cultivator first, Lin Feng would feel less pressure. I'll deal with the clone. You go deal with the kid. One of the Death Warriors said the other cultivator nodding and throwing himself at Lin Feng. The 2-headed winged tiger threw itself at him, but it was stopped by a cultivator of the 5th celestial layer. Tyrannical thunder incantation. Without holding back, Lin Feng used his most powerful attack. A ball of lightning instantly appeared in Lin Feng's hand. Lin Feng attacked the 4th Heaven Marshal King Realm cultivator. Kid, you're courting death. The 4th Heaven Marshal King Realm cultivator sneered and threw out 12 punches in a row. Fist shadows were everywhere, rushing towards Lin Feng. At the same time, the Marshal King Realm cultivator had already rushed behind Lin Feng. With a sneer on his face, he attacked Lin Feng with his palm. Even if Lin Feng could really kill the 4th Heaven Marshal King Realm cultivator, he would still be killed by the 5th Heaven Marshal King Realm cultivator's attack. Avoiding the attack was the best choice. The 2 Death Warriors originally thought that Lin Feng would avoid the attack. They were waiting for this moment. As long as Lin Feng retreated, the 2 of them could attack Lin Feng together. But what surprised them was that Lin Feng didn't retreat at all. It was as if he hadn't sensed the cultivator of the 5th celestial layer. He was still moving towards the cultivator of the 4th celestial layer. Bang! The 2 sides collided fiercely. The power of thunder exploded, directly blowing the 4th Heaven Marshal King Realm Death Warrior's arm into a bloody mist. The 4th Heaven Marshal King Realm Death Warrior let out an incomparably shrill cry. In the next moment, Lin Feng's palm hit his head, and his entire head was smashed into his body. Kid, you deserve to die. The 5th Heaven Marshal King Realm Death Warrior had already rushed over. Seeing that Lin Feng had killed one of his companions, he roared angrily and slammed his palm on Lin Feng's back, sending Lin Feng flying more than 10 meters away. With a loud bang, Lin Feng's body slammed into a big tree. The tree, which could only be hugged by a dozen people, was instantly broken by the terrifying impact. Chapter 468. Whoosh! After sending Lin Feng flying with a palm strike, the fifth-layer martial king warrior rushed towards Lin Feng, who had fallen to the ground. The clone is still alive, which means that the kid is still alive. Be careful, don't kill him. Leave him alive. We still need to find out the cultivation method of the clone from him. The warrior who was fighting the two-headed Cheong-Chi shouted, "Don't worry, we won't kill this kid. The treasure on this kid's body is not fated with us, but if we can get this kid's clone technique, we will definitely have a chance to cultivate it." The warrior who rushed towards Lin Feng replied. Soon, the warrior came to Lin Feng's side and attacked Lin Feng, who had fallen to the ground. Just in time, Lin Feng's expression was indifferent. When the cultivator came close to him, he quickly used the entanglement technique. Dense threads entangled the man of sacrifice in the fifth heaven of the martial king realm. Ah, the spiritual array technique. This kid is a spiritual array master. The death warrior cried out in horror. Poof! In the next moment, the head of the warrior was chopped off by Lin Feng. Huff, 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 Lin Feng panted heavily. He now felt that it was very difficult to breathe. His whole body was in extreme pain, and he didn't know if his bones were broken. Lin Feng gritted his teeth. He had to kill the other person. He couldn't delay any longer. If the 10th layer martial king warrior leader was attracted, he would definitely die. Whoosh! Lin Feng quickly moved towards another cultivator of the fifth sky of the Huangqi layer. The warrior originally thought that Lin Feng would be captured by his accomplice, but he didn't expect that Lin Feng would kill his accomplice. At this moment, he already had the intention to retreat, because he was only a cultivator of the fifth celestial layer. And Lin Feng not only had a powerful clone, but was also a spiritual deployment caster. At this moment, it was extremely unwise to stay. However, Lin Feng had no intention of letting this person go. He quickly rushed forward and punched out. Roar! The two-headed Cheong-Chi also let out a deep roar and cooperated with Lin Feng. The two-headed Cheong-Chi was the main attacker, and Lin Feng was the support. Pooh! After a dozen or so rounds of fighting, Lin Feng cut off the head of the death warrior. Pooh! Lin Feng heaved a sigh of relief. Just as he was about to leave, the sound of something tearing through the air came from afar. Very soon, a death warrior flew over. Brat, you killed so many of our people. Seeing the 4 dead cultivators, the death warrior's expression became extremely gloomy. 7th layer martial king. Lin Feng took a deep breath. This death warrior was too terrifying. He definitely had the strength to kill Lin Feng. Even if Lin Feng wasn't injured before, facing this person would still be a dead man. What's more, he was now seriously injured and was in a very bad situation. You want to kill me, but I'm not allowed to kill you? What a ridiculous statement, said Lin Feng coldly to the cultivator of the 7th celestial layer. He was holding a high-grade spirit stone in both hands. Lin Feng was quickly absorbing the spirit qi in the spirit stone to quickly recover his body. His heavily injured body was about to reach its limit after repeated battles. He had to recover quickly, or he wouldn't even have the strength to fight. Humph! The 7th layer martial king cultivator naturally saw the spirit stone in Lin Feng's hand and couldn't help but snort coldly. He didn't say anything else and directly rushed towards Lin Feng. This person obviously knew Lin Feng's plan. He could also feel the terrible condition of Lin Feng's body, so he didn't want to give Lin Feng any time to recover. Roar! The two-headed Cheong-Chi roared and rushed towards the 7th layer Martial King Death Warrior. "I'll destroy this clone." The Death Warrior's expression was indifferent. In his opinion, it was not difficult to destroy an external avatar. Boom, boom, boom. The man of sacrifice continuously attacked the two-headed Xiong-Chi more than a dozen times. Each time, the two-headed Xiong-Chi was sent flying, but in the next moment, the two-headed Xiong-Chi would attack again. The man of sacrifice's attacks were stronger each time, but he couldn't destroy the two-headed Xiong-Chi. The man of sacrifice's face became very ugly. It wasn't that he hadn't seen a clone before. However, he had never seen such a powerful clone. The man of sacrifice's face sank. He felt that things were not going well. They had already been delayed for a while. If they delayed any longer, the boy would be in big trouble once he recovered. Even though the cultivator of the 7th celestial layer didn't think Lin Feng could pose a threat to him. Even so, he didn't want to give Lin Feng too much time. In the man of sacrifice's opinion, if he could get rid of his opponent quickly and easily, there was no need to use complicated methods. "Get out of my way." The two-headed Xiong-Chi once again attacked the man of sacrifice. This time, the man of sacrifice didn't want to destroy the two-headed Xiong-Chi. He just wanted to make the two-headed Xiong-Chi retreat so that it wouldn't disturb him from killing Lin Feng. Bang! The man of sacrifice attacked again. He fiercely attacked the two-headed Xiong-Chi and directly sent it flying. Then, the man of sacrifice instantly rushed towards Lin Feng. Boy, it's time to end this. The face of this man of sacrifice in the 7th heaven of the Martial King realm was full of cold and dense killing intent. He raised his right hand, gathered a powerful attack, and attacked Lin Feng. Lin Feng threw away the 2 spiritual stones in his hand. While the two-headed Xiong-Chi was holding off the man of sacrifice, Lin Feng had already absorbed the pure energy contained in the 6 spiritual stones. After absorbing the energy contained in the 6 spiritual stones, Lin Feng felt that his genuine chi had recovered a lot. This man of sacrifice of the 7th heaven Martial King realm was indeed very powerful. If it was before, Lin Feng would have had a hard time defeating him. But now, Lin Feng had mastered the saber chi that contained the saber spirit. This was the strongest attack that Lin Feng had mastered so far. Boom! When the man of sacrifice attacked Lin Feng also moved and activated the saber chi. He gently waved his right hand in the void. A dazzling saber light rushed out. Lin Feng poured all his genuine chi into the saber light. Buzz, the saber light instantly became 10 meters long. Demonic blood saber! Demonic blood saber! The saber spirit let out an eerie and terrifying cry. "Saber spirit, how is this possible?" shouted the cultivator of the 7th celestial king layer. He couldn't believe it. He wanted to retreat, but he realized that he couldn't dodge Lin Feng's attacks. At this moment, the saber light that was more than 10 meters long had already struck down. No, the expert in the 7th heaven of the Martial King realm let out a terrified cry. Puff! The next moment, his body was torn apart. The terrifying saber light then destroyed a large area of the forest and tore a huge abyss in the ground. Several mountains in the distance were instantly split by the saber light. 1 saber split mountains and rivers. The saber light that had awakened the saber spirit was really powerful.